All right, we are live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Those Aren't Biscuits. Not on this normal day, but still not biscuits. I'm one of your
Wrong
hosts.
bat time, right bat channel.
Right. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan, Knott, and with me, as always, he's a bad guy, makes you very sad guy, might seduce your dad guy, Owen Adams.
One of those is correct. I'm not gonna tell you which one. Tell
yeah.
him I said hi.
I mean, that's how that conversation would have to start, right? Walk into the kitchen, just look at him like, Dad. Just,
When did you two even meet? That would be like the next question, you know?
I think he's like, have you been gallivanting with Brits again?
Gallivanting.
Have you
Sorry,
been
is this
stepping out
the
with the
18th
British?
century? Sorry, Dad, have you traveled back in time as well? Also? Have you got some Vodio dough? How about that, alternating current?
have you been sharing a soda pop down at the parlor?
I'm gonna interrupt the stream to like peek behind the curtain a little bit. I'm gonna break the illusion just to tell you,
Oh,
John. I'm having trouble getting Discord up, so you might want to post the messages to tell people. To
oh,
tell people.
sure. Oh,
You can
okay,
post it in my Discord too. That's okay.
sure. All right, I will write on that.
That's cool. It's cool. Shh.
Let me. I
Hello in
gotta
the
bring.
chat to Gamer Lad. How you doing? So I'm
Gotta bring
gonna
up this.
while we're doing this, I'm gonna tell you about my day to day. How I managed to ruin a chili in every single conceivable way.
like like a chili, as in like a single pepper.
A pot of
Like,
chili. Pot of chili. So
oh,
I
pot of
like to make
peppers.
chili. I have a slow cooker, and what I do is every so often you need to have a day where you just like clean your kitchen, give it a good old proper like deep clean. You know what I mean?
I don't throw everything into a pot and then make
No,
a
no,
chili.
no, no. Oh, I was like
Sounds
getting
gross.
getting crud from around the taps and putting it in the chili. But what I usually do is I'll do the deep clean, but then on my breaks I'll work on a chili. So I'll put the slow cooker in, put the
And
meat
I'll
in, and
bring the towel into the pot. You know.
sponges, pan scourers, the occasional fork. Um,
Dead rat.
so what I usually do is I tend to combine those days with something I like because I hate cleaning. Um, so I combine it with something I like, which is I like to make food in the slow cooker, and I usually make chili because I like chili. So I start putting the chili, and I'm chopping some onions, and I open a tin of kidney beans, and I drop it in the pot, and I've got the slow cooker running and stuff like that.
I mean,
And
you sound bored of this story.
no, it's fine. And then I open the pot of chili powder and I load in like a load of chili powder, and then I go and then I work for about an hour, and I'm cleaning the sink, I'm doing the dishes, and putting some laundry in. And I go back to the chili and I look next to it, and almost like a comical like close up, like whoosh, like an Edgar Wright movie. Like my eye like zooms in on the fact that that's not a
Michael
pot of
Cera's in your pot?
that's not a pot of chili powder next to my slow cooker. It's a pot of curry powder.
Oh.
And I'd put in like I was like I'll put a little bit of JD's, not a lot, but a little bit of JD, like a little bit of chili with a little dash of whiskey in it. Is nice. I like that as a flavor. Doesn't go so great with Indian spices, and curry is a so first of all I put this curry powder in. So I was like, okay, I gotta put some chili powder in. I had to put enough chili powder in to compensate, so it was incredibly hot, which is pretty bad. Then I hadn't put the meat in yet. I was like, all right, let's get this mince, and I got the mince. And well, I went to get the mince, and I didn't have any. I didn't have any mince beef, and I didn't have my bank card, so I couldn't go buy any. So I had this chili in the slow cooker, and I was like, okay, well, I could go vegetarian chili, I guess. But I didn't
Why?
really have anything like of substance to go with that either. So I didn't have any. I didn't have any mince beef. So I was like, all right, it's substitution time. I didn't have any steak. I had some bacon, like loin chops, but I was like, that'd be wrong. So I,
Hey, Owen, real quick. I don't have permission to post on your Discord.
all right, just post it in the normal room and add everyone. It'd be fine. Um, so then we'll be fine. People will find us. So I was like, okay, well, okay, I got these two fresh burgers. burgers are minced beef. I'll just take the burgers, I'll smush them down, I'll put them in the chili. It'll be fine. It'll be fine, right? An hour later, well, 2 hours later, because it's a slow cooker, I went to taste the chili. It tastes a little bit more like chili, but not a lot. I put some beef stock in as well, balance out the flavor a bit. Still tastes like a weird curry meal. And then, like, I'm stirring it around. I'm like, what's that? This doesn't look like mince. And I take it out, and it's like a hunk of, like, unstirred in burger meat. So, it's now been in the slow cooker for 7 hours, and last time I tasted it, it was delicious. It tastes really nice, right? It's not chili. It is a highly chili powdered Indian meal involving hunks of Irish beef burger meat.
As, you know.
And it's the strangest thing you've ever tasted. Everything went wrong with this meal that could possibly have gone wrong. But now it's delicious, and I'm happy. That's my story for today. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I guess I have another, or not, you know, I have a food story as well.
Hello to Tiny Vet Secret, by the way. How are you?
Yes, hello. Oh. I, on the way home, I'm like, okay, well, I gotta get home. I was running a little late because I had to stay late at work. I'm like, okay, I gotta get home, but I need to eat something. I haven't really eaten today. So I swing into Arby's, and I get and I am using their name for this because I'm calling you out, Arby's.
Yeah, Arby's. Your time has come. You thought you'd dodge the bullet.
Right. My massive internet platform will take you down. I pull into the drive-thru. What am I thinking? Buffalo chicken sandwich, please. Yes. Curly fries, sure. Small Sprite. Awesome. Don't really eat it there, right? Because, I mean, a lot of times when I order something through drive-thru, I actually just eat it in the car.
Right. Holding up all the other cars behind you.
Yeah, just
like, hold on, I'm eating.
God. It's really good. You're gonna really love your food when you get it. So I just drive home. Get home, set the bag down, just plow through the fries like as fast as I can. Just like, and that's actually the noise I make when I eat too.
But only fries.
Only fries. Only fries. I grab the chicken sandwich, open up, bite into it, big old bite. Just, completely raw inside.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, and I bit down so hard that I couldn't stop in time.
That's bad.
So I felt my teeth rip through every tendon and muscle in this chicken. Because when you cook it, that kind of goes away, right? It kind of,
right.
You know,
softens a little bit, renders the fat down. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was as if I had went to a farm, grabbed a chicken, snapped its neck, and then dug my teeth into its chest.
Tyler says, "Oh man, I want an Arby's now. There is no Arby's in my country. John, send me one, please. Not a meal, whole store."
And she goes, "Okay, no, now I don't want it."
You gotta wonder, like the first caveman that started putting his food on like the fire.
Right.
All the other people being like, "What are you doing? Ugh, no!
You're ruining."
Delicious.
Well, the one that always kind of confuses me is, okay, to be fair to Arby's, they're normally delicious. Like, I love Arby's, but yeah, someone just wasn't really on their game today. But I want to know about food, right? And like cavemen is, who's the first one to figure out like seasonings? You know,
right?
Like just grabbing random plants, like, oh, I'll just rub this on this, see how this tastes.
Right, because
like
pepper,
pine cones,
pepper on its own,
leaves, you know?
Pepper on its own tastes like crap too, as well, right? Like you wouldn't just eat pepper, like ground pepper, would you? You know?
Gamer Lad goes, "Why the hell is it brown, Ugg?" That's really funny.
Right, all these thoughts.
It's really matter of factly, just why the hell is it brown?
And you know that for at least like 20 years there was a holdout. It was like, in my day, I've heard that
Right. Like all the people nowadays complain about GMOs,
right
where it's like,
other
oh,
pe-
that could
other people who are like, I've heard that if you put the mammoth steak on the hot rocks, it causes autism.
they're protesting, this isn't how nature intended it.
Right, and then all the kids die of salmonella.
Right, right. Eat your raw chicken and be happy. Uh,
Cavemen, idiots. So we're mostly talking about one thing today, right?
yeah,
Right?
pretty much. Pretty
We
much.
saw Endgame. Should we do a little plot summary? I don't know. See,
Yeah, I could do a quick summary real quick. So, Connor McLeod
oh, you
is.
son of a bitch!
I knew it. I fucking knew it. That's why I did it. I'm happy now.
That is a reference to the movie Highlander Endgame for people who don't know.
I mean,
How did you know?
Game Light says, "Who decided to drink water? Oh yeah, runny mysterious crap. Let's shove it down my throat." Yeah, I mean, the amount of cave people who must have died due to just complete starvation and dehydration must be astounding.
Right. It's foie gras that really appeals to me. What if I just shoved that goose full of this shit? I bet it'll taste delicious. It'll take 6 months to find out, but I'm gonna fatten up that goose, you know?
Oh god, so gross.
Oh, I'm sure. It
I
sounds
mean,
disgusting.
oh no, I mean the food itself, I'm sure it probably tastes delicious. The practice of making it is
Yeah.
really horrible.
Do you know, I used to think that, but then have you ever been woken up by a goose at like 3 in the morning?
Oh, yeah, my thought isn't, okay, I'm going to capture that goose, trap it in a cage, and force feed it until it dies, and
Mine
then eat
was.
its liver. Like, I've never gone that
I
far.
feel the same way about Postman, to be honest.
Like Kevin Costner?
No, mailman.
Oh.
At like 4 in the morning. Just, yeah. Mail postman foie gras.
Oh, foie gras.
Yeah. What's really great about that is,
Did you read? It said fragile, Bob. Eat.
what I really love about that is you can always get it through sleet and snow, and it's just always available. Even at like during civil wars, you can always get it.
It was funny. This last winter, we had a week essentially that it was pretty much apocalyptic weather conditions. We had a huge blizzard, right, which dumped over a foot of snow here. Then followed up by negative 50-degree weather. um, they stopped the post. They're like, no, we're not sending our people out there. And I kind of felt lied to. I was like,
what I want to know is,
all my life I've been hearing how dedicated you sons of bitches are, right? And now because it's a little chilly,
John won't be happy till a
work.
postman
I had to
dies.
go to work that day.
What I want to know is, what would they do with like the first ever serial killer who exclusively targets postmen? You know, like no, look, he's killed the last 5 mail carriers who've brought stuff to his door. I'm not going. Now come on, Bill. You know the motto.
There's nothing in there that says anything about knives.
Just get there. The get there's a picket fence with a postman's head on each spike.
There's
Well,
one left.
I know exactly what's gonna happen to me, but he does have a letter from Reader's Digest.
Current resident has to get this advertisement.
Yeah, come on. I've got to get this message to the occupant.
I signed up for this, and goddamn it, I'm gonna...
Where it gets in there's just a stack of unopened letters. Oh, this was not worth it. The Mailman Killers, coming soon to a theater near you.
Wait, before you kill me, really not opened any of these?
Well, it's all junk, isn't it? I don't even get mail.
Huh.
I'm a squatter. I'm not even registered at this address. No.
I never put in my change of address form. Uh,
Actually,
the murderer town over is getting all my mail.
just as the finishes sharpening the blade. Actually, I mostly use email these days.
Son of a bitch! Turn the tables. It's like that movie High Tension, you know? Those hand fights back.
Tiny Secret says he knew because you freaking love Highlander, and we all know it. That is true. That is unavoidably true. I
That
don't
sounds like
freaking
something.
love Highlander Endgame. To be fair.
That sounds like something that you drunkenly yell at a bar. You freaking love Highlander. We all know it.
So we saw a little film, little indie film. Small. Right, small little feature called The Avengers 73 Infinity War 2 Endgame. I've talked a little. People already know what I thought about it because I posted a video. Why don't you tell me, John, what you thought of the Venga Boys Endgame?
Well, I was on board where I knew the Fanga bus was coming, and then everybody was jumping. I was still on board. But when they wanted me alone in my room, boom, 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 I realized it just took a turn. It just took a turn, and I wasn't really on board, you know?
Would you have preferred it if it was a boom boom boom? Everybody say ayo ayo.
Ayo!
Sorry, it's the only
It's
other
not.
boom 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 song I know.
Hello, Sinister Mister. Um,
Teddy Bazooka says, yes, tell us, John, with no punctuation, which makes it sound horrifying. Join us.
Tell us, John. And there's a kind of a odd capitalization there, so it's like, tell us, John.
John. Like William Shatner. John, I want you to tell us.
Avengers Endgame. John. Oh,
Captain's log.
start 8.
5 years later.
Is he now the villain of a blaxploitation film? 5 years later, Slapper Jack.
Shaft.
Oh.
Say boom, boom, boom. Let me hear you say shaft. You're damn right.
Yeah, at that point, the background singer is just confused.
Sorry,
You
where did I
say
come
Shaft.
in now? Sorry, did someone turn 2 pages at once? Yeah, so we saw Avengers Endgame. What did you think, John? Tell us all.
Okay, I will say this. This was my very first thought leaving the film, right? Which I'm glad I had to sit through the credits, because so
Spankalicious.
thankfully
I want to
the
see if I can just
theater
guess what it was.
thankfully the theater put up signs fucking everywhere saying there is no scene after the credits. um
What
nice.
you don't know is there's a 30-minute expose at extremist theater pricing. There is no scene after the credits. Do not wait. It's a whole post credit scene documentary about how much profit margin there is on popcorn.
Let's see here. Time Best says, I have realized something about a very late moment in Endgame. I shall come back to it when John catches up to that bit. Okay. So what I thought when I first left the film, I kind of stood there for a second and go, that was a weird movie.
I
It
agree.
is a strange film. Uh,
Yes.
and I think what I sent Owen when I got home and had a little bit of time to think about it was Endgame was exactly what I wanted it to be. Once I admitted to myself, I did not necessarily want a good movie.
I
because
think I agree.
because here's the
Um,
thing. Endgame is the perfect, near perfect wrap up of everything that we've had so far in the Marvel. Yes, everyone keeps on talking about like this is the end. It's not. We're getting more Marvel like next year, or later this year. We're getting more Marvel movies
Two
later
months.
this year. Yeah, um, but this is the
Spider-Man
perfect
remedial classes.
Spider-Man: I have to headline this shit now. Um, uh,
Spider-Man, 5 years of summer school in a 6 month period. Carry on.
um, I I it was the perfect wrap up of everything that we've had so far in Avengers or in the Marvel U. Uh,
Marvel U.
but
Do, 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 do.
call me Captain America, oh Captain My America. Um,
Oh, Captain, my Captain America.
yeah. Uh, like I said, it was a perfect wrap up of the MCU. By itself, not a good movie. um,
So I thought this was a kind of they managed to have their cake and eat it too with this. Because here's the thing. When you're trying to wrap up what is a big long run of stuff, because this is kind of like the season finale, right? If you think of the previous 10 years as season one, basically,
right, right.
this is like the season finale. And there's two schools of thought, right? You either go don't necessarily give people everything they want. Go really, really tightly crafted and hold back and keep them wanting more. Or you go, okay, fan service, give them everything they want, even though it might not be ultimately as strong a self contained product, right? And what they actually did is they just did both. They made Infinity
Hmm.
War the first thing, and then they made Endgame the second thing. And it kind of works. Like, personally, I think we'd probably have had better a better story if there was no Infinity War Part 2 and the stuff that happens in Endgame had played out over the next 5 movies, maybe. It might have been there'd been more time and more planning and stuff.
Hmm.
But this kind of does its job, I think, which is to kind of just let you release all your breath and go, all right, that's all done now. I can
Yeah,
relax.
it's and the weird thing is too is like the movie feels like it starts to answer questions that no one really ever asked. Right? It's like, so what did happen after that scene in Avengers 1? Oh,
Right.
they stood around and had some weird banter. Like,
I mean,
and he
it's
made this Hulk take the stairs. Like,
it's a really
which turned out to
dumb
be a huge plot point.
it's a really dumb movie because
It
like
really is.
I love this film, by the way, I should say. I love this film and I had a great time. I
Oh,
don't
yes.
think it's as good as Infinity War,
Ooh.
but Infinity War is one of those movies where you watch it and you're like, wow, that was really tight and internally consistent and really sort of perfect. In this one, like, it makes rules and then this is a time travel movie, right? So they're going back in time to get the Infinity Stones so they can defeat Thanos. They immediately set up, immediately. Okay, any preconceptions you may have about time travel stories, just throw it away because we're going with this substantially less interesting take on time travel.
It's like they establish a time travel where there's no consequence.
Right. That you cannot change history
Un-
anyway. But what you can do
it's
is go
destroy
back in
entire
time.
universes.
But what you can do is you can go back in time and live through the entirety of history and catch up, presumably having changed history so that you were there when you weren't before. But no, it's not even consistent with its own rules. But it's almost like that. I saw someone compare it to that bit in Austin Powers 2 where he just goes, just don't think about it. They explain really early on, okay, the plot is we're going back to get the Infinity Stones. And Hulk might as well have just gone, why can't we just go back and change history? Because that's not what this film's about. And then, when they go to get the Infinity Stone from where they think Doctor Strange has got it, they don't realize Doctor Strange is relatively new.
Yeah.
And she goes, I can't let you take them, because if you take them, it will basically destroy our universe. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. What's the solution going to be? And Hulk's like, I've got it. We bring them back. Okay.
And she's really cool with it, too, you know? Where it's like, yeah, but Steven said we should do this. Oh, shit, okay.
Alright, yeah, no, fine. The guy I haven't met yet, who I didn't trust at all and would refuse to train at the beginning. Yeah, so I actually quite like that. I quite like that this is not a movie about changing history, because they do address it by having that scene where everybody's like, Back to the Future, and like they listen.
You know what this movie did? You know what this movie did for me?
Right?
Like an hour into it, this was the first movie, an hour in, where I was reminded of the fact that the guys who directed this and all the really important Marvel U movies in the last 5 years did Arrested Development.
Right.
Like that was the first. This was the first inkling of like, oh yeah, these are those guys.
Hello to Jelksix in the Twitch chat. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah. Well, so this is a really interesting movie because, first of all, if you were to, in the same way that like the first Avengers is kind of a Thor movie, even though he doesn't get an excessive amount of screen time. It's his villain and it's that kind of scope. Right. The second Avengers is very much an Iron Man movie, even though he doesn't get too much screen. This is an Ant-Man movie. Like, he doesn't get an excessive amount of screen time, but he drives the plot, and his technology saves the day. He's really good in this. The scene when he's brought back and he's going through the dead memorial is pretty great. We're kind of all over the place on this one. Yeah. Do you want to go through the plot, or should we just hit things as they come?
Let's. You know, we can break down the summary real quick, okay?
Okay.
This is presumably this movie kicks in very soon after Infinity War. Month, maybe a month.
It's pretty quick because they're running out of oxygen, and I think they talk about it in a matter of weeks that they've had.
Yeah. So this is a week, right? So,
Tony Stark's floating through space with Nebula on the Guardians of the Galaxy ship.
So that happens. They get back to Earth,
rescued by Captain Marvel.
Yep. They sit around, they talk a little bit, like what's going on. Okay, we need to find Thanos. We need to get the stones. Okay, we figured out what Thanos is really quickly.
This is the cleverest choice in the film, by the way.
Yep. So okay, let's go. We'll get the stones back from Thanos. Let's do this. Show up. Thanos goes, sorry, I destroyed the stones because I knew you guys would be coming. Sorry.
Can I just say, I do love the bit when Captain Marvel's like, I'll go do recon, and she gets back and she's like, he's just sitting down there. He's just sitting down there. He's not doing anything.
So he's like, sorry. Broke all the stones. Oops. Thor kills him. Straight up murders him. Like, there's no...
Yeah. I mean, Hulk's like, well, maybe there's some sort of way. If you could just tell us where you did... He's not really saying that. It's just, no investigation. And they ask, and there's a nice callback to Infinity War, too, when...
I went for the head.
And he goes, I went for the head. It's a good moment, and he's...
The funny thing is how he says it, too. It wasn't even like, like, oh, I went for the head, like a badass. He,
Yeah, it
he
was.
really sounds like a kid who just got caught doing something wrong. Goes, I went for the head.
He's kind of broken at that point. Thor.
Yeah,
He's taken the entire blame for their failure on him.
yeah.
Thor, I will say before we get into this, one of my most conflicted feelings in this movie.
You know what I like about Thor in this movie? I
There's a
can
lot of
now
him to like.
I can now cosplay effectively as Thor.
Okay, so just to jump ahead, you may have heard the rumors. Thor is fat in this movie. He's fat in this movie.
For
There
the
are
whole
thing-
movie.
For the whole movie. In fact, one of the things I actually like about it, because I think they made a few cheap jokes about fat people. I'm not one of those, I'm a fat person. I'm not one of these fat people who gets very, very protective about any and all jokes about fat people. But I do think it's cheap, if you know what I mean. And sometimes it's cheap. But I will say one of the nicest things this movie does is when he redeems himself and sort of gets his empowerment back, he doesn't magically become thin. His value is not based on that. He goes and kicks ass fat, and I liked that. And he's not like Austin Powers fat, you know?
So what happens is that, okay, shit, we screwed up, go back, bam, jumps ahead 5 years later, right? This was something I wasn't expecting. They go 5 years later. Earth is still a fucking wreck, right? Everyone's still kind of messed up. I mean, as you would be, you know, like half the population is gone. And we don't even know that. It could be actually more because we're talking about
50% of life in the years. I think it's a safe implication though that it was half of every planet, not half of just totally random.
I guess.
But also Black Widow's hair has not grown out as much as it should from the blonde.
Right. And I was kind of watching that too. I was like, looking at her hair, I'm like, is that a choice?
Yeah, I know. That's such a dumb nitpick, by the way. It's just one of the things you think about when you think too much.
Yeah. So 5 years later, Black Widow is trying to kind of keep the Avengers going a little bit using Rhodey and Okoye, Rocket, and
Captain Marvel, who's like, got more important shit to do. Peace.
Yep.
I'm not really in this movie.
Right. Yeah, she's going. Captain America's running a support group. Tony, this one actually surprised me. He has kind of retreated to the woods with Pepper, and they have a daughter.
Best choice in the film too, because it immediately puts stakes on the table that say, like, I mean, I think they wrote her into the script, the daughter, in an earlier draft where they were going to say that changing history was possible, and then I think they just decided to just not do it. But the fact that everyone else is desperate to undo what they did, whereas he, for the first time in his life, has found peace, was the cleverest choice, one of the cleverest choices in the movie.
So, due to the heroics of a random mouse, Ant-Man returns from the quantum realm. He's been stuck in the quantum realm since his movie. I'm not going to go into that, but
I have friends, by the way, who own rats, and I saw them share a post talking about how great it was to see some positive rat representation in the movie, and it was not a joke.
Right. So he's back. He figures out what's going on, and he immediately has this idea, right? Because he knows that in the quantum realm, time moves differently. So he figures that if they...
Because he was only gone about 5 hours, by the way. He's been gone 5 years, but for him it was 5 hours.
Right. So he gets the team back together, and he's like, all right, we can do this. So they're like, okay, well, sure, I guess we could do this. So they go to Tony Stark. He goes, nah, I'm not doing that. You're on your own. So they find Banner. Banner tries, doesn't really work. Tony basically invents time travel in like the first 30 minutes of the film. He just kind of does it. He's like, oh yeah, no, I got it. I figured it out.
Yeah, all I needed was like a motivation to apply myself to the problem.
Right. He shows up. He's like, okay, let's do it. I am running through this incredibly quick.
Yeah.
Because like we said before, the plot, whatever. So they get everyone together who's still alive. Like, okay,
they basically decide to revisit all the times in history where they've encountered Infinity Stones, but they also realize that there's a point where 3 of them were in New York all at once, so they get them done all in one jump, which is quite clever actually, because it's it's quite well set up. They revisit the Soul Stone. They revisit.
Which is the shittiest. Okay, all right, real quick to talk about the Soul Stone. All right, of all the people they could have sent for the Soul Stone,
Send the two
they
who love each other.
send the two who have no fucking concept of what this is. All right, Nebula knows what the hell to do.
And they don't
She
tell him.
knows.
They don't go
Yeah.
like. By the way,
You're gonna have to kill one of each other.
why don't we just
Like,
sell? Well, they say you've got to put something you love in there. They don't say someone in the first
Right.
movie, right? Why don't they just sell Black Widow with her copy of Jagged Little Pill? Do you know what I mean?
right?
Like Hawkeye with a signed baseball. You know?
Right, right. Like, because that's the thing. Nebula knows, like, what the cost is, right? She's aware of this, and she's like, no, you two go. We'll go take care of the idiot singing
They
Red
don't
Bone.
tell him. They don't. Oh, by the way, just a heads up. Yeah, it's almost like they did that deliberately out of spite. Like, and then
Yeah, because like Rocket would know too, wouldn't he?
the other thing I'm curious about, and they really do brush over it, is you haven't seen Thor 2, have you?
No, not really.
So Thor 2, this is kind of important. It's not massively important if you haven't seen Thor 2. That's where one of the Infinity Stones was. In Thor 2, Jane gets accidentally teleported to another realm because she finds a portal. Because this thing called the alignment, the convergence is coming. She gets
I knew about
teleported.
that.
Pardon?
I knew about that.
Okay, but she gets teleported to this place where the ether is stored. And the ether is an infinity stone, but it's sort of a liquid infinity stone. And it bonds to her. And it bonds to her in such a way that if someone tries to grab her or threaten her or remove her, it explodes. It sends out like a shockwave that knocks people back, right? It's also killing her.
Right.
A key point of this movie is that the stones need to be... And at this point, by the way, they have not figured out how to remove the stone from her in Thor 2. A key point of this movie is that they need to remove the stones and put them back exactly where they found them. So somehow...
Oh, God.
Thor...
Oh, God. I just realized.
Removed the ether from Jane without speaking to her, because he's been all like stealthy. Even though they didn't know how to do that, how they got her out her in the movie is quite different. I think only Malekith got it out, right? And then he deliberately put it back in her. But sure, it's a strange thing that's... They only went there because they wanted that thing with the mother, but they totally gloss over that.
So, okay. I'm going to try to get through this as quick as I can, and then we can go back and... Alright? So, yeah. What we do is... We have 3 teams, right? 4 teams. We have... and it doesn't matter who's on what team.
4 teams. One group goes back to New York. One group... I mean, the truth is, all you really need to know about this bit is they have various personal journeys, but they each go and get their stones and come back alive, aside from Black Widow, who is sacrificed for the Soul Stone. That's really all you need to know about that stretch.
This section of the movie is essentially MCU the best of, right? This is the greatest hits section of...
Allegedly.
Well, what?
So I mean the Jaffa Cake. Well, I mean, Thor 2 wasn't exactly something we were all...
But it's Asgard, right? We're going back to Asgard. We're going back to the Guardians of the Galaxy world. We're going to New York. We're going to the really cool place from...
You know what? We can pretty much just wrap up from here.
Yeah.
While they're doing that, they attract the attention of Thanos from around about the time of Guardians of the Galaxy 1, who figures out what they're doing and starts to try and prevent them from doing it, seeing it as an opportunity to get all the Infinity Stones together. They go back, they take all the stones, they build an Infinity Gauntlet out of Iron Man's hand. Apparently you don't need a magic dwarf to get one. You can just make one out of modern-day Earth technology. And,
I mean Stark, I guess. Whatever.
They build a new Infinity Gauntlet out of an Iron Man hand. Hulk uses it to snap everybody back, and there's a big battle with past Thanos. That's
Hmm.
pretty much it, right?
Yep.
I mean, they have a battle before they know whether it's worked, and then everybody turns up, and but that's kind of it. I'd say that's pretty much everything. Oh, Tony Stark dies, and
Yeah.
Captain America, when he's taking the stones back, chooses to stay and live out his life with Peggy Carter. That's did I
Right.
miss. That's the
No,
big
that's
gist
pretty
of it,
much.
right?
Which, since you mentioned that weird thing about Jane Foster, there's the other implication that now Captain America has to go back to Asgard and then jab
Yeah.
Jane Foster with this fucking vial
Yep.
stealthily, I guess.
For sure. Sorry, I'm eating Jaffa cakes. I'm really hungry. And you were talking, so.
So yeah, that's kind of it. We get this big climactic battle at the end. Everything wraps up, and it's a good ending, I think. So yeah,
I
that's
love this movie.
it's a good movie.
It is a really, really great movie. The only disappointment comes from the fact that it's not Infinity War, but it probably never could have been. Um, and I think they just wanted something different after Infinity War. I think they wanted a movie that was to just let you go, okay, everything's okay.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. Like Infinity War, it ended on such a weird, like downer note, right? Where it's just like, oh fuck, you know.
Right.
This one really goes out of its way, especially that first half of the film, goes out of its way to be like, no, man, this is the fun, happy MCU that you've always known, right? Good times, you're loving this, right? There's jokes, there's funny moments, there's, you know, like I said before, there's this really important plot point of making the Hulk take the stairs instead of an elevator. Like that becomes an important
Thor's
point.
fat now.
Yeah,
How'd you feel about that?
Thor being fat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like okay, like I said, this movie is very much a hey, remember all the really fun stuff you remember from the MCU? We're gonna kind of try to jam it all into one movie.
Yeah.
That Thor being fat gag is 100% Ragnarok, right?
Absolutely.
That is had we not had Ragnarok, that gag doesn't exist. Um, because what we get is we get the goofy Thor from Ragnarok, and then everyone else being goofy with him because he's a big guy.
Yeah.
Um,
I think there are moments when I think it's a little, I don't want to say like beneath these movies, but I think they lean that way at times.
what this really feels like to me. It's kind of like, all right. So I'm gonna sum up this movie using a reference from a other beloved franchise. This this movie is the Citadel DLC from uh from Mass Effect. All right, this is we do have a plot, right? We do have a plot and some serious stakes, but the purpose of this movie is to make you remember how fun the
Do you know
MCU
do
has
you know what it
been.
reminded me of? Star Trek 4.
Oh yeah, the Voyage Home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know where it's just like, well, we went through two movies that were rough. Spock died. Kirk lost his son. We had to travel back in time. Well, not travel back in time, but we got exiled, and then they just have that movie where they're like, what if we travel back in time and had to save whales? You know?
Right.
It felt like that.
Yeah.
So I have two things I don't like about this movie. I'm gonna get them out of the way first because broadly everything else is positive. Captain Marvel didn't need to be in this movie, and I think people are really shitty about Captain Marvel and Brie Larson for a lot of terrible reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is actually an example of them trying to push a character before developing it, because she only does two things in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
She saves Tony Stark at the beginning, and then she's like, peace out, bye, see you in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then she turns up at the end in a movie that she's not really in to save the day, even though she's not really in this movie. And it just did nothing for me, even though I like that character. The other thing I don't like is, I think this movie would have been much, much better if they didn't feel like they had to make part 2 also about fighting Thanos.
I guess.
I I was not remotely interested in what Thanos from 2014 was doing. And I actually felt like it would have been more enjoyable if after they'd just killed him, he just wasn't in the movie. And it was about getting the Infinity Stones. And they'd found a different climax for that. It felt to me like he's only in this movie after they kill him. Because they felt like everybody would have expected it to be about fighting Thanos. But they're not really. It doesn't really pick up for an Infinity War. They're not even fighting, really, realistically, the same Thanos. So you're fighting
Sure.
this earlier, younger Thanos that isn't. It doesn't have. To me, it didn't have the same stakes as if Thanos had stayed alive and they'd fought him again. Okay, if they killed him at the beginning and we'd done without him, but it felt like he was just in there because they felt people would have expected him to be in there again. Whereas actually, because it's almost a completely different Thanos from a different time period who's just leapt in and it almost feels like that's a coincidence, isn't it? He also popped up in this. I mean, I know they explain it, they established it, and they got him back in, but I would have been happy with this movie if Thanos wasn't in it after that prologue.
Okay, let's see here. Real quick, just to cap out the chat. Time Bester says, so all week I've been questioning some of the editing choices, but I've just read something that has changed that. Apparently the I am Iron Man line from the end was a last minute choice. I actually just read that too. He wasn't saying anything when Thanos said he was inevitable, and they felt it needed something. So that's cool. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Um,
I think a
like
lot of lines are kind of ad libbed too. Wasn't the original I am Iron Man line an ad lib? He couldn't remember the speech, so he just didn't like the speech, so he just said it.
I
I'd heard
something
that
like that.
back in the
Yeah.
first Iron Man movie.
Okay, so my feeling on the whole Thanos thing is I thought what brought him into the fray was kind of lame. Like that is like a really poorly explained thing where it's like, oh, because two nebulas exist in the same universe now, they can share memories or
Right.
something. I thought that was really weird. But uh okay, at that point in the movie, I had already come to terms with what this was going to be. Like I
Right.
knew this was going to be the this was the catharsis movie. Like this was the movie that was going to it was never going to challenge you. It was never going to like really play with your conceptions on like super heroics and these grand
No, for
scales. Like
sure.
that was Infinity War. Infinity War did that. That's the one that made you go, "Oh god, like there are some shit." Like we had that and I didn't need that again. I
Right.
didn't need I
For
didn't
sure. The
need
the
a hard-hitting
goal
thing.
the goal of this movie is to get to the Avengers Assemble scene.
Yes. And I am 100% okay with that because
Yeah, no, me too.
like and so like having like you can't just to me it was like you can't shove in any other like new threat or any threat that
Although,
was weaker than
was there a
Thanos.
moment?
You know?
Was there a moment when you worried we were gonna go back to Avengers One era Loki
There was
when
like
he
when
buggered
he,
off with the
yeah,
Tesseract?
I'm like, oh god, is this motherfucker coming back at the end?
I mean, that's going to be the Loki that ends up in this Disney miniseries, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I like the big final climactic battle.
I
I
love
actually
that
thought
scene,
was
by the way, though.
amazing.
When they
Yeah.
just drop the Tesseract and he just goes,
Hmm.
"Peace."
Yeah.
It is a great moment.
The Time Messenger says, yeah, RDJ improvised that line. Cool. Uh, so I actually I was actually really okay with, and I thought it was a good choice of we bring back Thanos because this is one, like I said, it's a catharsis film. He whooped the shit out of them in the first in Infinity War, right? So we bring him back how we can in this movie so that they can beat him up, right?
Right.
It's the Rocky 2 thing,
For
right?
sure.
Um and so I was way okay with it. Like I said, I didn't really care for how they did it, but I thought that once once it was revealed to Thanos that oh, this is what they're doing, this is why they're doing it, he actually acted very much in line with
For
that
sure.
character,
And
right?
I didn't hate it. It just didn't do anything for me. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It
I
it
mean,
didn't grab me.
there's so much about this plot specifically that didn't do anything for me,
Right.
but I can't deny that it wasn't fun to watch.
I mean, more so than any other Avengers movie, this movie is an excuse for set pieces.
Yeah, and while if had this been Avengers 1, or I mean, even I still have issues with Avengers 1, because it was Avengers 1. I think Avengers 1 does exactly the same thing in a weird way, where it's like, why are we bringing Loki back as the main villain for this?
That never really
Why?
bothered me. I felt like you had to have, for that movie, you had to have a villain you'd seen before, and who else would you use? You know what I mean?
It was just, yeah, like yeah, I guess. But so like this time around, like the whole thing of like, okay, we're gonna really, really contrive some moments here to create some of these set pieces didn't bother me. It really didn't bother me.
Right. Well, I would say this film's predominantly about the characters, where they are now and where they end up, more so than the plot.
Mm-hmm.
I know that partly is the plot, but like, for example, when I think about this movie in future, like when I think of Infinity War, I'll think about, oh wow, that scene where they have to go and make a new hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this whole process and how that fits into the main plot and how he gets there just in time, but then it's still too late.
Right.
When I think of Endgame, I'm gonna think about, oh yeah, Banner and Hulk are the same person now, and they've fused their personalities. And oh yeah, Captain America uses the hammer. You know what I mean?
Right,
That's
exactly.
gonna be the stuff I remember.
Yeah, that's a difference, right? Is Infinity War is very much oh, Tony's arrogance finally got the best of him and he lost, right? He couldn't win this one. Right. All the proud warriors of Wakanda couldn't win this one. The whole thing, like, oh, Tony has to come to terms in like a matter of seconds that his protege just died for him, right? This is, these are like hard hitting moments, right? In Endgame, what's going to stick with me is, dude, Thor was dual wielding an axe and a hammer for a while. Thanos tried to headbutt Captain Marvel and she just like shook it off and was like, fuck yeah.
And it does have some great moments in terms of character development though. Like, for example, in Iron Man 3 and Civil War, and I think even like Homecoming, they established this thing about how Tony doesn't like do the sappy hug moments.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Spider-Man comes back in this movie, he has that hug, that genuine hug, because it's Peter Parker who persuades Tony to actually look into the time travel thing in the first place.
Yeah.
It's his death that is the motivating factor. And you know what? Like, say what you like about big action set pieces. Most of the time I don't care. I think they're overblown these days. But when that scene kicks in, because we've had quite a long battle up to that point.
Right.
When and Captain America is at the very like weakest point. He's down. Everybody's down, right? And Thanos is coming, and you're like, okay, what's gonna happen? I should have been expecting it, but I wasn't even really expecting it because we hadn't seen the people come back. I thought what they were suggesting was the snap hadn't worked or something like that,
Right.
And then you just hear that little like the Falcon on the radio, and it's a nice moment. And then when those like Doctor Strange sparkly circles start coming in,
right,
genuine feels like,
oh yeah, like
and I've waited my whole life. I never knew I was waiting for it, but to see on the big screen that shot when giant Ant-Man's sprinting into battle and Valkyrie's there and the Wasp's there and Doctor Strange and Spider and it's this huge, and it's full of characters you recognize. It's like when you'd get those comic book hero books as a kid, and the front page between the cover and the front page would be like a fold out double spread. You know what I mean? It was like those books had those as a kid, those fold out pages where you just see like, oh look, it's all these characters. You get like a Transformers annual and it'd be like a poster. It was like that come to life. Right. And it hit me.
And here's the weird thing, right? It's like I knew going into this movie, like, my logical brain going, okay, they're going to win, right? They're like, because I know there's movies coming out. I know there's the
Well, because
Marvel.
also it would be a really shitty movie if they didn't. It would just be
Well,
miserable.
at the same time, like I'm thinking, like, oh wait, I kind of thought the same thing about Infinity War, right? Like but they didn't. So I'm wondering, like, do they do it? Do they let Thanos win again? And
And
like, and then there's like,
then
because
announce a third Avengers movie next year. And just see how long they can keep getting away with it.
for a brief moment, I'm thinking like, well, we've established these other timelines, right?
Right.
Do we just jump to one of them and go, here's your other chance, here's your next, you got this timeline, like this
Yeah.
is your chance, right?
Well, like, people
Like,
kept saying things like, "Oh, do you think we'll see them bring in any X-Men characters?" And I didn't. I didn't think they were
no.
going to do that.
The one prediction I had, which I think we should go through those predictions eventually, but
Yeah,
the
sure.
one
I'll
one
pull
prediction
up
I
the window.
thought was going to happen didn't pan out, even though I thought there was a perfect moment for it. But like I thought we were going to see maybe, or at least a reference to the Defenders.
I
'Cause
saw I saw a great article. It was from one of those like Onion type sites, and it said Daredevil too busy defending Bodega to help fight Thanos.
yes.
I just thought that was
Um,
really funny.
Because,
Uh,
like, I mean, I guess it could have been that moment, right, where like like maybe these guys don't know who the Defenders are, but like Doctor Strange would have, right?
right, and some of them would have been legitimately useful. Like Daredevil might not have been that useful. He was very much outclassed.
Iron
But like
Fist would have been
Iron
like,
Fist, Luke
uh,
Cage, you know.
even Jessica Jones, but like,
Right.
uh,
Yeah, and I know it sounds kind of strange, but you know who I would have loved to have seen uh who I would have loved to have seen what they were doing at the time. Well, okay, I can't because she's dead. I was gonna say during some of the MCU movies, I would have loved to know what Mariah Dillard was doing, but she's gone now. But you know what I
okay,
mean? That's a
right,
character I would have loved to have just had a little scene of, even if you don't get Daredevil in or Luke
right.
Cage. Give me like a Dillard or a Oh man, are any of Daredevil's supporting characters left? Um,
I guess yeah, no, they're all dead.
um, yeah, I sort of agree. The problem is when you want to talk about this movie, it leads to nitpicking, and this is the kind of thing where when you say it, people are going to think that you're defending it, even though it's indefensible. But I don't mean it like that. This is much more a movie that holds together based on how it makes you feel about things you've been watching for a long time, than based on how well plotted it is.
Right.
And I mean, I loved seeing a lot of the scenes in this movie. One of my favorite scenes in the movie, and it's such a little thing, it's when those kids come up for Hulk's autograph, and he
Right.
gives it, and then Ant-Man's like, do you want my autograph too? And like, not only was Ant-Man never in the MCU a very like prominent superhero, he did like one thing publicly and went under house arrest, right? But he's been gone 5 years. No, so that's inherently it's absurd. But the way, like, it was genuinely sweet the way Bruce is like, come on, no, they want it. They do. They really do want your autograph. Yeah, it's fine.
Time Master says, "You did see that, Owen. She was sad about her son that died in Sokovia."
It's true.
uh,
um,
but
yeah,
like I said, like this movie, and I think they knew it going in. Like this movie was going to be about the moments, not about the whole, right?
yeah,
It's like, I mean, when I think about this movie, this is gonna sound really weird, but the very first thing that comes to my mind when I stop and go, Endgame, is no joke, and it's such a small moment too, right? But there's a scene during the climactic battle where Thor throws his hammer, right? And Spider-Man webs onto it and uses it to drag himself and the gauntlet across the battlefield. I'm like, that's fucking awesome,
yeah.
right? That's so cool.
They learned from last time too. They fight Thanos very differently.
Yeah.
Um,
They don't line up one at a time and go, my turn. You know?
yeah. Um, did you like Hulk as fused with Banner? It was a way of doing
That
something
did.
different with him, wasn't it?
Oh, I thought that was fine.
And it
You
was
know,
a
'cause-
it was a nice culmination of what he's been going through the last few movies. You know, in Ragnarok, he wouldn't let Banner come back, and then in Infinity War, Hulk wouldn't come out. You know.
here, Tiny Best says, I almost stop crying every time I think about it now. Have you been crying consistently since since the movie? Like you should drink something, get some saline. Or,
They did it the way I thought they were going to do it too. They didn't, because I know a lot of people are like, oh man, so many characters are going to be in both these movies, and I didn't think they were going to make this the big crossover movie like Infinity War was. I was pretty sure they weren't going to come back till the very end, you know. Do you know what I wasn't expecting? I wasn't expecting them to bring those characters back 5 years later, having changed no history, and have them all have to reacclimatize. That's going to be some
right.
mop up work, you
Yeah.
know. Um,
Uh,
I think you were only right about one of your predictions, you know.
I was right about a couple. In maybe not directly, but I think that I maybe somewhat right.
We'll get to them.
Yeah.
I did see someone point out that I don't know how true this is, but someone said that when Thanos snapped the Infinity Gauntlet, he was in Africa and it was daytime. But when Hawkeye's family disappeared, they were in
It's
wherever in
yeah.
America he lives, and it was still daytime. I
Yeah.
thought that was really funny. But yeah.
There's one part of the climactic battle that, and I think a lot of people have pointed out this scene. Uh, it was a moment where I go, yeah, fucking awesome, and then like a second later go, oh no, it really wasn't. Um, there's a scene right where let me just size this up right. Spider-Man is trying to get the gauntlet to a van. That sounds weird, but there's a reason. Like there's like an energy source or some bullshit in this van, right? Like we have to get the glove to the van, and first
That van is
Black
quite a character in the Ant-Man movies, almost. By the way, it's
um first Black Panther takes it, which that itself was kind of weird to me. It's like, okay, we have like the coolest black dude in the MCU, and we make him a running back. That
right,
was
but
kind
but
of
all these characters that have been snapped back basically don't get like the full spotlight they deserve. It's just
right,
about
right,
showing their faces, I think.
yeah, yeah. He gets about halfway, then gets overtaken. Spider-Man gets the glove. He's like, all right, I'll take it from here, and he almost gets there, but he gets taken down, and then Captain Marvel shows up. She's like, "Give it to me, kid. I'll get there." And this is okay. Don't interrupt me on this one. I'm gonna break this down. Okay. Spider-Man looks at her and goes, "Well, how are you gonna make it? You just watched her enter the Earth atmosphere and destroy a ship single-handedly, and you're questioning if she can make it fucking 100 yards." Like, okay. But then he's kind of confirmed. Like his weird suspicions about her ability to get there are confirmed because Okoye then pops up and goes, "Don't worry, she has help." And then Okoye, the Wasp, Mantis, Nebula, uh, Valkyrie, and am I missing anyone? I don't think I'm missing anyone.
Yeah, all the female characters. I think there
All
are a
the
few
all the
more.
all the all the female characters show up and go.
All the
First,
single ladies.
yeah. First, they make a nice, cool pose, right? The music starts playing, and they're like, "Yeah, let's go, girl power!" And they go rushing into battle, kick ass. Like they whoop.
It's great fun.
Yeah,
It's
it's
very on
great.
the nose, but it's great fun.
Right. And so like this moment happens, and I'm like literally like, "Yeah, fuck yeah, dude, this is awesome." But that same moment, I'm like, "Oh, this is weird," because they had to really make that a point. Like they had to really kind of go out of their way to say this because the MCU has been really, if there's one criticism the MCU has been like dogged with since the beginning, is their female character representation.
The real difficulty in enjoying a scene like that is, as good and as fun and as fine as a scene as it is now, you have to sit there and go, well, there's gonna be 30 YouTube videos about that by the time I get home.
Right, right. And that's kind of what I got to. I'm like, oh man, this is ripe. This is ripe for fucking Comicsgate to jump on and go, oh, see what they're trying to do, shove this feminist agenda down your throat. And like, okay. But it was still an awesome scene. Like, it was still really cool to see. Like, and like you said, like, does Captain Marvel deserve to be in this movie as much, or not as much, but like her prominence at the end? Maybe not, but it was still really cool. Like, it was still awesome.
I don't mind Captain Marvel being in the movie at all. I just think they didn't handle it great. They wanted her in the movie more than they had a role for her in the movie.
You know what I think what they did with this is that they actually. So if you think about this, right? So the whole the important thing, right, is getting the gauntlet to the van, right? That's the most important thing that has to happen in this fight. It's not killing Thanos. It's not anything like that. It's getting the glove to the van. Who did it, right? It was Black Panther, it was Spider-Man, and it was Captain Marvel, right? These are the three big ones who are going to go on in the MCU, right? These are going to be the three big characters. It's very much a passing the torch onto these guys, let them accomplish the thing, and then once that was over, now we let the old guys back in to settle their grudge with Thanos.
There is, by the way, a really nice moment in this scene, in this whole sequence, which is, and it's a callback to Ant-Man and the Wasp. There's a scene in Ant-Man and the Wasp when Hope is, if you haven't seen any of the Ant-Man movies, which I know you haven't yet, Hope is, she's tough. She does not trust easily, and she didn't want to bring Scott in the first movie, and she's kind of pissed that he took the Ant-Man suit and helped and got himself locked up and got them in trouble legally in Civil War. And and when she's questioning him, he's like, well, we had to, Cap said that he needed, and she's like, Cap? And he's like, Cap, in America. It's what we call him. It's a Cap. And then in this movie, they have this nice moment when she's been unsnapped. And she's there. She's like, all right, let's go help Cap. And there's like a little knowing look. It was a nice callback, I thought. A nice little, just a little nod to, if you'd seen, if you've seen them all, they have these little moments that just, were you expecting, for example, were you expecting to see Korg again?
No.
I would take a whole Korg movie, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't. You know what? I want to. 5-episode miniseries of Korg and his little buddy with the knives.
No action, just talking.
No action, yeah.
Like Clerks.
I want to see them. Yeah, I want to see the Clerks of them like having to move into an apartment together or something.
We rewatched a few movies in the run up to this, and one of the ones we watched was Ragnarok, and that bit at the end is still the funniest thing to me when Asgard's being destroyed, and he goes, "It's okay. Their foundations are still good. We can rebuild. It'll be a haven for all races and creeds across the universe." And it just explodes, and he goes, "Oh no, sorry, those foundations are gone."
Yeah. So Ty Bessinger says, all the representation moments are like that Endgame. The gay character in the support group was overstated. Okoye's character was overstated. We'll get there, and the conversation is good. I agree.
I think by overstated Tiny Bit Secret means before the movie. Like, overstated to what they were actually in the movie,
Oh, I guess.
Because there was a bit of controversy about Okoye being on all the posters and then not really being in the film.
Right.
People were saying that they wanted it to look like she was in it more. But things are moving forward, you know? But I think that's why they are rushing a little bit with Captain Marvel.
So I think what we're going to get is, we got it where, like I said, we had the big moment where it was all the new characters basically doing it.
Doing it. All the new characters.
Yeah.
Doing it. Whoa, bouch. Wow.
So I think that's a real like kind of symbolic moment where it's like, okay, going forward, the big three I think are going to be Black Panther, Spider-Man, and Captain
It's
Marvel.
so weird that we now exist in a universe where Iron Man's dead and Spider-Man's just beginning.
Right.
And
Uh,
Captain, I mean, the idea that we live in a universe that's post Captain America makes a lot of sense because that's always been the vibe they've gone for. Even though Captain America's been back, you know what I mean? Like he was always this wartime hero, but no, it's interesting. It's interesting.
I so one of my favorite jokes, right? Let's move on to that. Some of our favorite, just little moments. Uh I have to admit it was a shitty, they're kind of shitty jokes, but I laughed where it was that Tony goes, I have to tell you, Cap, that suit does not do anything for your ass.
Yeah,
And Sam goes, don't you listen to him. That's America's ass.
right, because there's that lovely running thing about Ant-Man being a bit in awe of Captain America.
Right.
And then later on, because that scene where Cap has to fight himself is great.
Yeah. And then he looks down and goes, that is America's ass.
It's great.
I
And I
thought that
also
was
like
great.
it's such a little moment too, but when he realizes he can get the scepter because he knows all these people are in Hydra, and there's that great callback to the Winter Soldier
Right. Yep.
elevator scene. And a little bit of a nod to Secret War.
Yep.
Was it called Secret War? That comic everybody hated when Cap was in
Mm-hmm.
Hydra.
Secret Empire.
A Secret Empire, the one nobody liked. That was
Right.
that was obviously a nod to that, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Uh, yeah. It's, although the weird thing is that I don't know if this was intentional or what, but there was definitely a no a Batman versus Superman moment, uh, where old Cap, or I guess old young Cap, uh, has one up on new young old, I don't know, Cap, uh, and then the current day Captain goes, Bucky's alive. What? Like it
so
was very much a Martha.
not to completely change subjects on you, but Shazam has a hilarious sort of nod to Batman versus Superman in it, which is while the big fight with the villains going on across the city and they're beating the crap out of each other, there's a kid who's holding two action figures of Batman and Superman and is just ramming them against each other, like "Rah, rah, rah." And then he looks out of the window and Shazam's like Shazam, and lightning's going all everywhere and shit, and he's fighting the villain, and he just drops the action figures. He's like, oh. It was a nice little nod.
But,
You should see Shazam. It's good.
yeah.
There's a good joke in it. But anyway, so should we do your predictions? Well, okay, no, I'd say there's a few other things I want to talk about. The scene when the scene when Hulk's telling Ant-Man all the terrible things that'll go wrong if it doesn't work properly, and everyone's like, "No, he's joking. That wouldn't really happen, would it?" And Hulk's like, "Oh yeah, everything'll be fine." Was great.
Yeah.
And then when Tony turns up and he was like, first he was old, then he was a baby, like.
Yeah. Like you push time through him and not him through time. Yeah.
Was great. Ant-Man's Ant-Man's daughter being an adult, interesting choice.
Mm-hmm.
Sad.
Yep.
Um, uh, there's a lot I like about this movie. I want to watch it again. I just realized this is your first exposure to the MCU Hank Pym, but in 70s form.
Yeah. I mean,
He doesn't do
whatever.
anything in the movie. It's not remotely
Yeah.
relevant, but
Um, God, there's. I do kind of like that bit where we see the opening of Guardians of the Galaxy of
yes,
Star
with no
Star-Lord
sound.
singing Redbone. And then it just cuts to their perspective on it. It's like,
He's an idiot.
"Come get your love." And he's just,
I also like when past Gamora's like, him, really? And she was like, it was between him or a tree.
yeah.
That was good. Nebula, this is probably the best Nebula movie we've had so far.
Oh yeah.
She was great in this. I think Nebula's really funny. they play her straight, but I think she's supposed to be funny. You know what I mean? Most of the time, I like that character a lot, and I liked her a lot in this. Tiny Bit Secret says, "Can I just say about Cassie that sudden age change was my biggest plot hole? She was like 7, 8 max. Yeah, she was a little too old, I think."
Maybe she just developed sooner.
This is so sad to me though, because this is why you need to see those MM movies. His daughter in those two movies is the most adorable child actress in the world. And I'm genuinely sad if she's not going to be in any more movies because of that. Like, I'm genuinely, that to me is. Do you know what might happen? Because here's the thing, I'm really confused about Far From Home now. It doesn't seem to be set 5 years ahead. I don't know what they're going to do, but I think, like, my only possible thing, and this is what I've been thinking, is do you think Far From Home's going to open with Spider-Man basically going, well, then, after all that happened, Scott Lang took us to Hank Pym to get some more Pym particles, and we went back in time, and he put us back where we came.
No, it doesn't. It does. No way. Well, because. Okay, so here's going to be the deal: is that all the important characters, because this is the great thing about the snap, right? Is that at any moment they can just say,
Right.
"Oh, that person was snapped."
Aunt May went
right?
too, so did Ned and Flash and MJ, and right, because 50% is a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Now,
and then
I think it would be interesting.
You pick one or two to be conveniently older, so you don't forget.
Right. I think it would be interesting if we get reference to I can't remember her name, but she was the Vulture's daughter.
Right.
If she's not, right? If she wasn't snapped, right?
Do you know what I'd love? Oh. If Vulture had like a 5-year sentence, but he'd been snapped, and he was like, well, as you can see, I was sentenced to 5 years in prison. 5 years has passed. I did not leave my cell.
Right. So I think what we're going to do is actually going to get kind of an example, or I think they'll use the snap. Here's my prediction. All right, this is my really jumping ahead prediction. There's a lot of people already talking about how Mysterio in Far From Home is going to basically be a fraud, a fraudulent hero. Right. He's going to be, he's creating these threats and then taking them out himself
for the credit.
Right. I think how this come about is that he found a void, right? The snap happened. He wasn't snapped. He was left behind. Everyone was sad. Everyone was depressed. So he started to create these threats and then saving them. And people were like really on board with it because, oh, hey, it's a hero. I think there's going to be some sort of tie into like why he started and the snap.
Right. It's going to be interesting because, of course, Nick Fury is taking the Tony Stark role in Far From Home.
Right.
And he's also been gone 5 years. So is the whole movie him going to be going, here's what's going on, Spider-Man? Oh, shit, no, I have no idea. I don't know who this guy is. I don't know what's happening in the world.
Like S.H.I.E.L.D., I guess, is probably still operating some sort of capacity, so he'll probably get filled in.
Do you know what's interesting, though? And I don't think they'll address it because they're going to try and pitch it as, like, a resolution, but...
Oh, just real quick, Ty Bester says that actress is 18.
Wow. That's crazy. As huge of a shock to the world as removing half of the population of the planet is, suddenly 5 years later, putting them all back
I was thinking about that.
Is almost as destructive.
Right. It's like, this is not going to be good. Like, I mean, yeah, it's a movie universe. I'll probably not touch on that at all. They're probably like, oh my god, everyone's back. It's great.
This is such a nitpick. But I know that they can't change history because of time travel, right? Using time travel, because they established this, right? This is not something you could do. But what we do know is that you can wind time back with the Time Stone.
Yep.
They could have used the Infinity Stones. They couldn't use time travel to change history, but they could have changed it with the Infinity Stones. And they didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, but okay, hold on. They I will I will I will I will advocate for the screenwriters. Okay,
Okay.
I will take the role as their advocate. Doctor Strange can reverse time with the time zone.
Okay.
Don't. Doesn't necessarily mean they know how to do that.
So they get Doctor Strange on it, and they just get thousands upon thousands of eaten apples. Just, oh, you've done it again, Doctor Strange.
But like I say, Doctor Strange was snapped. They
It's
don't
true.
have him to reverse the time.
It's so interesting because, like, I don't know what part of me. This is the cynical part of me, but part of me thinks Disney only bought Fox because they know in about 10 years Galactus is probably gonna be who they'll need to like up the game from Thanos. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was trying to think of like, okay. Here's the fun thing. Let's predict who the next big bad is, and we cannot use Galactus.
Well, see, one of the things
Too
is
obvious.
one
Too
of the
obvious.
people I would have picked has already been in and defeated, which is I think one of the choices that I would have put. If you were writing a list of who would you put on like Thanos scale that isn't Galactus, I'd put Dormammu on there.
Right.
But
I
he
mean,
was
like,
already trapped in a time loop in Doctor
and
Strange's first movie.
and like even in the comics, like Dormammu very rarely is a like malicious character.
He's always trapped on the other side of something, isn't he? As
Right.
well.
Like him being a villain is often a just a matter of his like day-to-day existence
What's
just happens to threaten
right? Yeah, because I mean, okay, so Galactus. I mean, I love the. I was reading Secret War, the original Secret War, and they're all the villains and the people are all trying to associate and figure out what the Beyonder's doing. And the whole time, Galactus is just standing there staring, and everyone's like, "Hey, Galactus, want to help?" And he's just oblivious to them because he's so higher than them. So Galactus is obviously is up there. So who would you have other than Galactus? I don't know. Maybe okay. I don't want him to do it because it's a crappy plot, but maybe like if I could list, do you remember Onslaught?
no, no,
Oh
no.
no, well no, because we don't even have the X-Men. But you know what I mean? That's the problem, and I don't want them to do Onslaught. What I'm saying is, that's the problem with the Marvel universe, right? No offense, Marvel universe, it's great, but
Like
well, you've got three tiers of villains, really, haven't you?
right.
You've got
Yeah.
Scorpion, Venom, people like that, the Spider-Man villains. Then you've got people on the other end of the spectrum, Galactus, the Beyonder, God, like Jehovah, right? Like these hugely powerful villains. And then in the middle, you've got characters like Onslaught, who are shit.
And like so often like the biggest villain in the Marvel universe is often like someone who's just kind of emotionally broken, you know, like
Someone,
Scarlet Witch
someone who used to
or
work for the Daily Bugle. Like half the time it's that, and I'm not even talking about just Eddie Brock, but it's usually someone like that, right? Like 10 years ago, I passed Tony Stark on the corridor, and he didn't want to buy my design for an Iron Man with racist symbols on it. So now I'm back.
right.
I mean, in
Yeah.
Tony Stark's case, it's alcoholism, you know, like
Right. Okay, my prediction for a villain, and I guess this is only a recent development because of the Fox deal. I can see Doom. Uh, I can see Doom being a big villain because,
but even
and
Doom, like I'd put Doom on like the Ultron scale.
sure, but he also has the capacity to get more powerful. You know what I mean? Like he's the type of
Right.
character who often is as powerful as he is because he's like not necessarily steals power, but like he
It's tricky.
ascends. He's very much an ascending character. Like
It's
whenever
tricky.
he's involved with a big plot, it's always like he starts off small, like okay, I'm ruling in the library, blah blah. I have my magic and I have my science, and he goes, well, I have this idea, but I need to be more powerful, so I'm going to ascend in a certain way to be
It's it,
more than I am.
it's tricky because you have to go with what they've done already. Like if they hadn't put him in the first Avengers film, you could have made Infinity War an Infinity War scale movie with Loki.
Yeah.
I think. And then you've got people who are too smart. Like, for example, Spider-Man's biggest villain is an industrialist in a goblin mask.
Right.
So he's not going to be... And you can't have someone who's too associated with one particular character, even though Loki is... I mean, okay, so we got Galactus. Like, I mean, Galactus is so much higher than Thanos. That would be ridiculous. You need someone big. Like, the problem is, everybody else...
You know what the weird thing? You know what the weird thing about Galactus is, though? As big as he is, he's a Fantastic Four villain. Like, he's very rarely goes beyond that.
I mean, he used to more often in, like, the 70s, but these days, not that much. And the same with Doctor Doom, though. Like, what are you gonna do? Doctor Doom with all the power of the universe just screaming, Richards! And everyone like, who? Because the thing is, you can't build up to Doom without getting the Fantastic Four into the MCU first. And the other difficulty is, and this is something we're dealing with too, which is now every major villain now is too tied to another character. Like, Apocalypse. Or... I mean, you could do... do you know... If they were still carrying on this thing of taking characters who were sort of B-list and trying to build them up, they would do Kang the Conqueror, right?
Right. You know who I can honestly see... Well, no, not really, because they used him. Fuck. Well, not really.
MODOK.
I was gonna say Mephisto.
Oh yeah, maybe. Why not? Sure.
But then they would have to kind of like disavow the Ghost Rider movies, which I mean,
I think they'd be happy enough to do that.
Okay. I'm looking through. I mean, I guess they could. They could do this, but it would take a lot of setup and like a lot of people. I mean, what kind? Like Annihilus.
Okay. And then of course you got characters like Grandmaster, who they've done, but power reduced.
Right.
What about the High Evolutionary?
That'd be kind of rough, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, there are so many characters that previously, before you'd seen the movies, would you thought they would have worked? You know.
Right, but like, my thing is, you need the villain. Like, it's not even so much who the villain is. Like, what is their like motivation? And like, so much like the High Evolutionary isn't even so much like on like a grand scale. It's like, ooh, I want to play in my lab and fuck, and fuck with people's DNA. I mean, you can do stuff like the Beyonder.
But he's not really a villain. But, you know, if you built up to Secret War, that wouldn't be a bad idea. But it would be a bit too much like...
Oh, you know what would be kind of interesting for them to do? Now, this one would take a lot of setup, right? And I'm thinking, like, it might be hard to have, like, the big fight at the end. But, like, the Sentry... You know? Like have that Superman character, right?
Or you could take someone who was specifically associated with a character, but then build them up in the way you did with Loki and do something like Blackheart. Or maybe so maybe not like Onslaught. But what about if you just built up a more personal villain and you did something like one of Magneto's bigger arcs, you know? Like if it wasn't for the fact that we got a movie coming out this year, I would have suggested start rolling the X-Men in and do Phoenix. Even though I'm not a huge fan of that. I like that story in the comic. I don't think it's ever been adapted in a way that wasn't tedious.
Right. You know who I think would actually be interesting to do? Going back to like my Doctor Doom pick. Is actually skip Doctor Doom, right? Because Doctor Doom has too much ties to the Fantastic Four.
He is a Fantastic Four villain through and through, I think.
Yeah.
Mind you, we're getting a Joker movie without Batman, and if
Sure.
you can do that.
Uh, I think you skip him, right, and just bring in like Lucia von Bardis, right?
Yeah, sure, why not? Just make her the leader of a country, and then you
Right.
have Doom as this sort
Like
of
figure, right?
right,
That
like do you remember Kim Jong Il's dad, who was still technically president of the country even though he was dead?
right.
You have him as this shadow that looms over.
And like with her being like the ruler of a country as well, like you get the moments of like,
Right, because that's the most interesting thing about Doom,
uh
I would say.
you know, yeah, like I mean, how would I set this up? Okay, I'm gonna spitball here. Okay, we can keep it tied to this original grouping, right? Of movies of the original MCU, and say that and we can even play with the economics of the fact of all these people coming back, right? Uh, say all these people come back after being gone for so long. Who's going to be hurt the most? Probably like smaller countries economically, right? That are probably going to be hurt the most.
Mm-hmm.
Because like first you have to deal with, oh, now we don't have enough people to produce goods, and now we have to suddenly provide for a 50% increase
Right.
in our or 100% increase of what we have now. So her country's going to go into ruins because of this. And the one thing she has is like her big brother, Victor Von Doom, who died years before. She finds his secret research into the occult and the science stuff, and she starts to fuck with her population to basically make an army to go out and take over things to secure goods, essentially, for her own country. And that's going to come into conflict with, I don't know, like Wakanda. They're going to come into contact with, all these other heroes. I don't know. You can start there, right? And the only thing I have a hard time is like, how do you bring in the cosmic characters so much into that fight? But who knows? I'm not a screenwriter.
So here's a question then: if you were to do like the Avengers 1 thing and take a villain from each of the let's not even do that then. So how about we just take a movie at a time then, and let's do some of the low level villains, and then we'll do your Endgame predictions. But
Okay.
let's say the movies we got coming up. What villains haven't we seen that you haven't seen yet? So let's say a Spider-Man villain,
Mm-hmm.
a oh man, who we got coming? Who's left? Man, so many people are gone. Okay, well let's do it this way then. Are there any
Okay.
villains?
Throw me a hero name. I'll tell you who I want as their villain for next one. All right.
All right, and if they're not in anymore, I
Mhm.
want to know a villain you wished we could have got before they'd gone. So like, let's go with, but just nice and simple. Is there an Iron Man villain you would have liked to have seen before?
An
He
Iron Man
bowed out?
villain. Whirlwind.
Man, how would you even do that in the MCU? That'd be interesting.
It'd be dumb.
Spider-Man. Who do you want to see after Mysterio?
After Mysterio, who do I want to see in? Well, I mean, I guess the go-to is always Green Goblin, but we've had so many fucking goblins.
I like the Green Goblin as a character in the comics. It's just
Mhm.
like he's been done. I'm so sick
Right.
of Norman Osborn.
Craven. I want to see Craven.
Oh, I'd love a Craven movie. He's yet to be in any of the movies too.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see Craven.
And he's like a really classic Spider-Man villain too. Probably the biggest villain yet to make an appearance, right?
Mhm.
Except
Yep.
maybe yeah, we haven't had Scorpion yet, have we?
We've had references.
He was sort of in Homecoming.
Yeah.
Captain America.
Captain America. Oh shit. We really did get his. Well, okay.
Hitler.
Close. Very close. I wouldn't mind
Goering.
seeing the Hate Monger.
Oh yeah, okay.
I think that would be a very, especially okay going forward since this is going to be really, but I think it'd be very interesting to see a hate monger versus specifically a Sam Wilson Captain America.
Yeah. All right, Joe. This probably doesn't have that many legs. Let's do your predictions before we forget.
No, keep going, keep going.
Okay. Okay.
I like doing this.
Okay.
Hi, Tiny. Oh, hi, Dutch Gamer. Welcome.
Doctor Strange. Who do you want to see in the next Doctor Strange movie?
Ooh, next Doctor Strange movie. I would. Well, I guess I kind of want to see the culmination of that. Was it Mordor? Not Mordor.
Mordo.
Mordor. Yeah.
Not a villain, but can we have the dog in the next Doctor Strange movie? For people who don't read the comics, in the comics at the moment, Doctor Strange has a ghost beagle.
Yes.
A talking ghost beagle. He used to be an alive beagle, but Loki gave him a heart attack and killed him.
Either that, or I wouldn't mind seeing Shuma Gorath.
Yeah. Do you know what I'd like to see? I don't even care that it would be completely ridiculous. I don't care which movie he's in. Can we have Fing Fang Foom? Can we just have a giant Chinese dragon, please?
Right.
Oh my god, imagine if that was the build-up. 10 years to the build-up of a movie where we fight a Chinese dragon god.
Okay.
Can we have the real Mandarin, please? Can we have the can we have the real MCU version of the Mandarin, not the fake Mandarin? The real Mandarin. Okay. All right. Thor.
Thor.
I feel like we've had Thor's best villains, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like the movie that we're for sure going to be getting soon. I don't know if we're going to get another Thor movie, honestly.
I think he's going to move over to Guardians.
Yes.
That seems to be where they're leading with that.
Who would I want for a Thor villain?
See, I don't even know many Thor villains. Loki's like the only one I really know, and Hela.
I guess I wouldn't mind seeing like, what were they called? I can't remember what he was called, but he's the one who kicked off that original sin. Not original sin. Fear itself. Event.
Oh man, what's his name? Oh, I forget. I don't read a lot of Thor. So, would you be happy to see the Netflix show characters now be rolled into the movies?
I mean, no. Not really. I will say, because one you didn't ask me, and I think it's a big one, right? It's one that it's really gonna be important. Who's next? For Black Panther, right?
Oh, okay.
I personally would like to see the Namor fight.
Oh, they'd never do that.
I want to see the villain Namor. Those two going at it.
I don't think we'll ever see an MCU Namor.
You don't think so? I mean, really, why is he the weird one that you don't think is going to
wings
show
on
up?
his feet.
Oh, okay. Thor had wings on his head.
Yeah, but they didn't put them on. But Namor, it's integral that he has the wings on his feet.
Yeah, they've changed that though. They're like spines now. They're not wings.
Do they still look like wings?
Not really.
Have you seen Aquaman yet?
Nope.
Weird fucking movie. I love that film. You know, they're finally getting a sense of humor to those DC movies, though. I don't want to spoil Shazam for you. I'm not going to spoil Shazam for you. I'll tell you just what a little bit I like, though.
Oh, shit. Okay, I was wondering about this. Sorry, not to cut you off.
Oh, no, sure. Go for it.
So I just searched Namor, and the first thing I get is Avengers Endgame fan theory predicts Namor the Submariner will be Black Panther villain. And so I clicked on it, and it's like, oh, I guess that kind of makes a little sense. So there's a throwaway line in Endgame, right? Where
these earthquakes, and everyone goes to investigate.
And she goes, like, what do we do with it we leave the earthquake alone. Like, Okoye's very, very pointedly like, we don't go there.
That would be pretty cool. So there's a little moment in Shazam. I don't want to spoil Shazam for you because it's really good. But they are developing a sense of humor. So, for people who don't know, Shazam has powers that are broadly in line with Superman's.
Since Mr. suggests ice giants for Thor.
Oh, I'd like that. Even though they
Yeah.
were kind of in the first one. But one of the powers he doesn't share is super hearing.
Oh no, wait, he's answering. I think it was the ice giants who kicked off fear itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Um,
think.
so Captain Marvel is broadly the same as Superman powers wise, but he doesn't have things like super hearing or like supervision.
Right.
And there's a great scene where he's flying and the villain's flying and they're like doing the big face off in the city. And the villain's like monologuing, soon the world will be mine, you will never defeat me. But then it keeps cutting back to Shazam. And they're really far away and he's like, what? I can't hear a word you're saying. You're like you're like 30 yards away. What are you talking about? I have no idea what's going on. What are you I really like that. They seem to be getting that self-aware humor more into those movies. And I don't think you could do superhero movies without that because you need some recognition of the fact that even when you're
Right.
taking them seriously, they're inherently a little ridiculous.
Right.
Um that's why I don't know if that's why there's a big problem when you come to adapt characters who are slightly too ridiculous, you know?
I mean, oh god. I mean, what I'm kind of worried about is so there's some characters, comic book characters that just no, like there's no I think good way to bring them to the screen, and I get the feeling that
I feel like
Disney,
Neymar's one of them.
yeah, I guess, but I get the feeling there's a lot of like uh we can't fuck up mentality going on in Disney right now because they announced the Eternals, and it's like, really?
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
you've got to
I
imagine
barely know who they are.
you've
You know?
you've got to imagine that the ultimate end goal is to basically get every character, right? But then, like, if you've killed off Iron Man, how do you get like I don't know, like there are so many characters you just wouldn't add from the Iron Man universe without Iron Man, right? You wouldn't just roll them in as a Sam Wilson Captain America villain, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, haven't they kind of done that already? They've, um,
I guess.
maybe not. I mean, because like Ultron, right? Ultron's like big deal is him and Hank Pym, right?
Yeah.
But you know,
Right, but Hank Pym wasn't established, so they just switched it to Tony Stark, and the thing still works. But man, I
I mean, I think now more than ever we actually have the opportunity to uh see some interesting Iron Man villains portrayed without Iron Man, right?
right.
Because now we have the void. Like, oh, Tony Stark isn't around to keep his own old shit in check, right?
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I think one of the difficulties is, and I know they own Fox now, but I think this is still a difficulty because until they decide how they're going to do it, I don't think they're ready for it. The big difficulty they have now is, after all the characters we've got left, all the good ones that are left are mutants or Inhumans.
I guess.
And we
I
have
mean,
the Inhumans in the MCU, but not in the movies. And, like,
but I think there's plenty of villains within the comic books that like are actually underutilized in the comics as well.
for sure.
That could step up.
Do you think maybe rather than trying to get to X-Men movies, oh no, see this would really break it. I was gonna say maybe they should start doing the mutants thing, but start introducing them primarily by using the villains who haven't been used that much in the X-Men movies. But I think it would send the wrong signal about the X-Men universe if every mutant we saw was basically like a psycho.
Mm-hmm.
Although it might actually provide a good reason for the world to suddenly have an animus towards mutants as opposed to the other superheroes.
Right.
If
Because I think that's going to be the hardest thing. Like, because everyone's like, "Oh man, I can't wait to see what the MCU does with the mutants." The problem being is that we've like established a universe that the people generally probably wouldn't be bothered by.
right, because we're already aware of superpowers and things. And the other
Right.
thing is, because I remember saying to you ages ago, as a result of Thanos bringing people back, it's gonna trigger like people being mutants, and you were like, no, that doesn't really work because that breaks the fundamental thing of the mutants, which is they were born that way, and then it's an analogy for prejudice, and you were right. But presumably, if mutants start popping up in the next year or so in the MCU, people are gonna go, well, this is obviously something to do with that Thanos thing,
Right.
because you would obviously feel that way, right?
Right. But it's
Bruce
but even
Banner,
then, like no matter how they explain it, you're going to lose the key important thing about the X-Men.
right?
Right.
They
And
they have to be natural. All people have to
Mhm.
believe that they're natural or not. You know.
that's why I think they're much better off. It's going to sound bad, but I think they're going to be much better used individually than as groups.
There's just a scene where Bruce Banner goes, "Oh yeah, so I remember I clicked my finger and I said in my head, bring everybody back that Thanos snapped. Oh, by the way, also create a load of natural born superhuman people. I don't know why, it just popped in there. I
Yeah, it was
didn't.
just there.
I just found myself thinking it.
Like I could see them like going back to like old stories for this, where because I mean I guess we're still gonna have a Hulk, right,
Right.
in the upcoming MCU. Like he might not have his own movie because I don't think he'll ever get his own movie again. But
No.
I mean he'll still be around, so there could be movies where he's in it and we have a Wolverine trying to track him down and kill him, right?
Well, the big difficulty with
Uh,
Wolverine is, so I'm not a huge Wolverine fan.
no,
I like Wolverine. He's all right in small doses. He's one of those characters who was killed through overuse in the comics before he ever got his first adaptation.
yeah, but he also got way too used in adaptations as well.
Right, and so now you've got this difficulty, which is Wolverine's this hugely prominent character who Fox has already run into the ground.
Right.
And how do you recast him now? Like, I don't think any superheroes these days are as singularly iconic as, say, the Christopher Reeve Superman. Totally, totally untouchable. But, like, Hugh Jackman played that role from 98 to
Yeah.
2015, 2016. And for that entire time, he was one of the most prominent, beloved superheroes in cinema, right?
hmm
If they bring X-Men in, they've got to do it without Wolverine, I think. Like literally the only and how do you now, as a new movie in the MCU, how do you now go, okay, well, just because we're going to a new universe where we're recasting James McAvoy and Patrick Stewart and all these characters, and you know what I mean? It's a
hmm
weird transition. Like maybe a better, I mean, and this would still have broken it because people have said maybe a better thing to do it would be after they split the universe, they just merge the Fox universe in with the MCU one. That doesn't work because
No.
that means making
No.
X-Men Origins Wolverine an MCU movie. Um,
Right.
and and then you've still got the problem of the X-Men aren't exactly natural, because even if they were natural in their own universe, everybody in the new universe would be able to go, well, a minute ago there weren't all these fucking superpowered people here. You know, I think they're doing the right thing, which is they're announcing absolutely nothing. They're announcing no new X-Men movies.
Mhm.
Nobody knows what's happening with New Mutants,
Right.
and like that one that was supposed to be going back for reshoots, and then everyone involved in it goes, we were supposed to be going back for reshoots, and it's just gone radio silence, so we have no idea what's going on. That
Yeah.
movie's dead, I
Yeah, I
think.
think so.
Which is sad because that looked pretty good, but
Looked interesting at least.
yeah. But I think they're just gonna wait, you know.
hmm
And then what would be good about that is they could just wait, let the MCU movie quieten down, schedule a few less movies, and then start the X-Men thing almost as a soft reboot. Like things got quieter for a bit, and now it turns out these new people with superpowers are appearing. That would work.
Yeah, I guess.
Give it a long
Uh,
time though.
I guess the one way I could see like the X-Men being brought in a kind of a, I don't know, because like, maybe it's not important. Maybe it's not as important as I think it is. Like in the grand scheme.
Vaccines did it.
Oh, but but if we get a moment of like the X-Men being mistaken as villains, right? As like this group who've been kind of just hiding out. I don't know. Like, how would you explain? Like, why didn't they show up? But if for whatever reason they come up with like, okay, this group of people who, for some reason, were in hiding because of their abilities or whatever, get misconstrued as villains, and you have the likes of, I don't know, Captain Marvel and Black Panther and Spider-Man and whatever coming after them, thinking they're a big threat, and then having to realize that they're not. They're
The only way I could see that working is if you've also got the Brotherhood of Mutants, right?
Mhm.
And you've got the Brotherhood doing stuff and the X-Men getting the blame.
Right.
So, like, Magneto and his team go and, I don't know, rob a bank and spray paint mutant rights on the wall. And they do some research and they go, well, this guy knows this other guy called Charles
Mhm.
Xavier, and he's got this mysterious school in the city, and they're
Mhm.
past associates, and you know what I mean?
Right.
And even then, yeah, it's tricky. Because, I mean, the big difficulty is, like, I mean, maybe it's not so bad. How do the comics introduce these things? They just do it, you know? They just start writing a new movie and
Right.
go, okay, go for it. But the problem is the existing Fox couldn't let the X-Men universe settle because if they did, they'd have reverted the rights, right?
Mhm.
But really, what the X-Men need is just time off, you know?
Right. We need a solid 5 years without an X-Men.
Right, and then maybe once you've had 5 years without an X-Men movie, maybe then you can just make one, and just
Right.
make it like the first X-Men movie in the MCU, as if there'd
Mhm.
never been any other movies,
Right.
and just
Or,
go, yeah, as mutants now.
mhm. And you can at that point maybe you can construct a way to bring them in and still have the prejudice in it, sort
Right.
of thing.
Would you keep
Uh,
anybody from the existing MCU? Like, what if would you keep? Imagine you're rebooting the MCU. Well, you're rebooting X-Men for the MCU. You're completely in charge, and they basically go, if you want to keep things and go, okay, well, so some things are basically the same, if you know what I mean. Would you keep
mhm.
anything? Because, like, for example, I'd keep Deadpool exactly as it was, because he's self-aware, right?
Sure.
And just run
Uh,
and just have him observe the fact that he's now in the MCU, right? Just have him comment on it. But other than that, excluding Deadpool, and hello to
mm,
Asperger Bear, how you doing?
oh, hey.
What would you
I
keep from of the X-Men universe from 97 to present day?
I guess you couldn't really keep everything about the character, but you can keep, I think, the main parts. Like, I guess, like X-23.
From
Um,
Logan?
yeah, like that same idea.
Well, the only difficulty with that is her
She's gonna be
movie.
aged out.
Well,
But
the only difficulty with that is her movie is the finale for a lot of other characters. So that movie couldn't
right,
be canon.
yeah, I guess. Well,
Unless you just
maybe
said it's set in the future.
maybe it could, right? Just because you don't have to be specific, right? You can say like just in her backstory, like, oh yeah, she was genetically created in a lab, and two elderly mutants helped her along the way, and they didn't make it.
How would you feel if the MCU did something like the Flash TV show, the way it overlaps with the Supergirl TV show, and just suggested that the Fox
Uh,
universe and the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies and the things sort of exist, but as separate universes? Would you be okay with that? Like a
not
multiverse theory?
not really, because like this is gonna sound bad, but when it comes to like those television shows, I don't necessarily need um heavy explanation for things.
Right.
In a movie, I kind of do. I
Okay.
want something more substantial. I'll be right back.
Okay. Hello, everybody. We're talking about Marvel Cinematic Universe, Endgame, stuff like that. In a moment, before we completely forget, John's going to be going over some predictions he made for Endgame before he saw Endgame, and we're going to see how many he got right, which would be pretty cool. And right now, we're talking about how they would work the Fox sort of X-Men universe in, and we'll see. It's pretty cool. I sort of think what they'll probably do. This is what I think. If they wanted to acknowledge it in some way, I think what they probably do is maybe keep Patrick Stewart as a historical, almost the way when Daniel Craig took over as Bond, and he was a rebooted Bond in a different time period. Judi Dench was still M. You know what I mean? I feel like you could grandfather in Patrick Stewart as like a pre-existing Professor X, but maybe not even have him in the movie, and then kind of reboot everything else with more obscure X-Men, you know? But that'd be interesting to see. Sinister Minister says, how do we keep score? Well, there's only 5, so you could probably just do it all in your head, to be fair. I don't think he'll... well, I've seen him. I know how many he got right. I'm going to annoy him by arguing he only got 1 right.
I got
Hey,
more
John.
than 1.
How you doing? So what do you think about that? The idea that basically we reboot the X-Men universe with more obscure mutants to begin with and give people time to rest, but you still kind of grandfather in Patrick Stewart as sort of a historical Professor X.
I can see that. We don't even need him to be there to act. Just have his picture.
Right.
You know, like oh man, remember the good days with Xavier?
Right. But just it's a different Xavier. Because I mean, like Days of Future Past's practically a complete reboot screw up of the canon, and everybody accepts that because it's a good movie. All right, let's do your predictions.
Okay.
So the first prediction you gave me was, I would say, dead on.
Yeah.
You said Hawkeye's family got snapped.
Yeah.
I'd say this is dead on, but I'd say this was also pretty.
That was the
easy. Yeah, we don't need to talk about that one. That did happen. 2 was the Defenders and a lot of other characters who haven't been in a show or movie are referenced.
That did not happen.
No. Not even a little bit.
Not even a little bit.
This is really disappointing to me because the more, like, I don't expect them to reference the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on the movies because it's kind of like a cheap TV show, fair enough. Not everybody watches it, but what it makes up for is the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. references the movies all the time. That's the fun. Those Marvel shows might as well have not been in the MCU, really.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. 3. In the end, Thanos' snap isn't reversed, but a new timeline where it didn't happen is created, giving us 2 MCUs. What would you say about this one?
This is the one I think is half right.
Okay.
Because his snap isn't reversed, right?
That's
it's
true.
not really reversed. They just do another one.
But it didn't create a new timeline with 2 MCUs.
I guess that's true in a sense.
Unless you consider the original Chris Evans went back in time to be the existing timeline.
Right, because like what we do now have is like 4 different timelines essentially.
I guess. Now I actually don't remember if you got this next one right. Black Widow's space quantum time suit will have an unnecessary detailing that highlights her boobs. I genuinely don't remember.
Well, maybe we can find a picture.
Oh yeah. Going to the old library, eh? Going to the old saved photos.
Black Widow time travel suit. Let's see here. Well, if this picture is correct, no, this looks like a weird fan art.
If this picture's correct, it's like a Rule 34. Like she's an anime character drawn in Photoshop. Horrible things are happening in the background.
It looks like they pretty much gave her the exact same suit as everyone else.
Weirdly, did you notice that everybody basically had the same suit until they started properly suiting up? And then like Rhodey had a War Machine helmet, and Ant-Man had like an Ant-Man helmet, and I was like, why?
Yeah.
Why give them all? Who spent the time giving them all custom on-brand helmets?
Right.
And then your final prediction was there will be a scene with two characters separated by glass, and they'll be calling out to each other, but it'll be muffled. Now this one was so specific. What was it going through your head with this prediction, John?
It just seemed like such a thing, right, that happens in these movies, right? Where it's like I was
Has this
definitely
happened in any of the other MCU movies? I'm not sure.
no, not really, but like I was really thinking hard of like Star Trek,
Oh, okay. Like Into Darkness?
yeah, that sort of thing, or Wrath of Khan. Uh, I mean, even like stuff like Lost had it.
Okay, so remind me,
Uh,
it's been longer since I saw it than you. Did this one happen?
mm, Not really. Uh,
The thing is, there are so many safer predictions you could have gone with that I think.
Sure. I mean, there's a ton of predictions I could have had that were absolutely right, but I didn't want to because they were easy.
Speaking of predictions, let's talk about things you didn't predict before we. I think we should probably finish up soon, but I do want to ask: did you think Fat Thanos would die in the first 15 minutes?
No.
And did you think that he'd have destroyed the Infinity Stones?
Yes.
Uh, I I didn't expect either of those, to be
Mhm.
honest. I thought they just wouldn't have known where he'd gone. To be like, you know what I mean? Like that was
Right.
my thing. Um, and I expected him to show up once he realized they were going to try and go back in time. Uh,
Mhm.
can I just say, destroying the Infinity Stones was a really stupid thing to do because I get why he did it because he was like, as long as these Infinity Stones have been destroyed, nobody can ever undo what I did. No amount of planning will ever undo it, right?
Right.
And he's broadly right. He didn't expect them to invent time travel, but at the same time, uh, their plan was actually really stupid. I realize that Captain Marvel says the incredibly reassuring thing of "last time you didn't have me," but um, he didn't like give up that gauntlet easily. They only almost got him off it that one time because they completely took him by surprise and managed to make him go to sleep. Kind of.
Right.
What were they gonna do when they got there? Just do that again and fail and all die?
Yeah. I mean, it was not a wasn't a great idea.
They did it twice in Infinity War and they lost both times. Like, and that was when he didn't even have all the stones. I mean,
Yeah.
because there's one thing, like I try not to be so nitpicky, but if there's one nitpick that really makes me laugh, it's not a fault against the movie, but it makes me laugh about Infinity War is Thanos could have pretty much done, he could have achieved his goal with like the first two stones.
Yeah. Kind of.
Like if he just got like two of the, I get going for all six, but if he hadn't got the Mind Stone. Like, if they'd managed to destroy the Mind Stone, he could still have just gone and just set about carrying on doing what he used to do, going from planet to planet, but just faster and more efficiently. He'd still have been like an unstoppably destructive force. I mean, I would argue, from what we see of it in Infinity War, the Reality Stone pretty much encompasses everything he needs to do.
Yeah. Kind of.
Anyway. So anything else you want to talk about with Marvel then? Because I think I've said all I need to say on Endgame. I liked it a lot, but it is a flawed movie.
Yeah, it's definitely flawed, but I think it's good. It's a damn good movie. I think going forward, man, I was really on the fence about this, but I think from what I've heard announced, I don't think there's a way I get out of not buying Disney Plus. Like
Yeah, because how much is on there? The Loki show,
the Loki
Hawkeye show,
Hawkeye show,
the
Vision,
WandaVision show.
Which is it really they're gonna call it the WandaVision?
WandaVision. That's what it's called. It's called WandaVision.
Uh,
The Bucky and Captain America, and
okay.
well, now Captain America show, the Bucky and Sam Wilson show.
Right. A Mandalorian, like if you're going into Star Wars.
Yeah. Um, there's
Which, by the way, we never
there's a,
talked about that trailer, but
I haven't seen it.
you never saw it? Oh, not the Mandalorian trailer.
Oh,
The
Rise
Rise
there.
of-
Where?
yeah,
Uh,
fine.
Cassian Andor is getting a show
Really?
from Rogue One. My favorite response to that trailer was the Red Letter Media guys, who can be nitpicky and annoying sometimes, but they did those pretty cool trailers. They did a video called "No One's Ever Really Gone," and it was a clip of everybody who'd ever died in the Star Wars universe, with the guy just going, "Don't worry, no one's ever really gone. It's okay. No one's ever really gone." I think if Carrie Fisher hadn't died, they would not be bringing the Emperor back. Sorry. What's his name? Ian McDermott.
Yeah.
I apologize. It's just that we're really short on living legends of the Star Wars saga now. I saw the most amazing picture. It was in the Solo movie. There's a scene where Lando says to Han, "One day I'll get my ship back," and Han says, "Over my dead body."
Oh yeah, I saw that. And just a gif of
Yeah, just thrilled. Whee! It was great. Still with us, John? You gonna all
Yeah,
quiet?
I'm still here. I'm still here.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think Rise of the Skywalker looked awful. So I have mixed feelings about The Last Jedi. So The Last Jedi tends to divide people between people who think it's the worst SJW propaganda in the world and terrible, and people who think it's this godsend amazing movie because it defied all our expectations. And I just think it's all right, you know. Some of the ways it defied expectations, I think, were very good, and sometimes I think the movie's a little bit messy and a little all over the place. I don't really like the middle section with the casino very much.
No one does.
Yeah,
Even people
no one
who like
does.
the movie don't like that scene.
Right, but
Like
I
me.
like the film fine. But it does feel a little bit like it exists to just get us to the next movie.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how Rise of the Skywalker turns out. I'm really curious if it's basically going to be the equivalent of J.J. Abrams gluing back the pieces of a jar and putting all the pennies back in after Rian Johnson just knocked it off a mantelpiece. You know, like if that's how he sees it and that's what the movie's like, or if it's going to be a case of him taking all those broken pieces and turning it into a lovely collage. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because Rian Johnson, and I don't think this is inherently a negative thing, but he did basically fuck it all up, didn't he? Like, I don't
A little
mean...
bit.
I don't mean even in a bad way. I mean, he just went in and was like, all right, breaking that.
Yeah. Well, nope. Fuck
Yeah.
that.
And sometimes it really works, and sometimes it doesn't work as much for me. But yeah, it's going to be interesting if J.J. Abrams is going to approach it with a thing of, all right, I've got to fix all this shit. But then J.J. Abrams didn't originally think he was making the third movie. And from what I understand, like, they didn't go into it with, like, a plan that much. So, we'll see. But then Daisy Ridley also did come out and say that Rian Johnson got rid of a lot of J.J. Abrams' plans. So, we'll see.
So here's another one that I think this one actually really excites me about the Disney Plus service.
We're getting it too, by the way. We've already talked about it. We're pretty much sold.
Yeah. This actually is exciting. It's been announced, going back to Marvel. They've announced a What If series.
Yeah, this interests me.
Which it's going to be an animated series. It's an anime series, and I guess the first episode will be what if Peggy Carter had become the super soldier.
Ooh, I'd like. Well, that'd be pretty good. I was thinking of all the terrible what ifs now that they could.
Yeah, there's been a lot of them. Well, because like
a lot of people forget, like, what if, like, certain series, like, oh, the Punisher kills the MCU, or the Punisher kills the Marvel universe, like, that's technically a what if, and I don't want to see that.
Do you guys see
Like,
that? Did you see that DC has their own zombie book now called
Deceased?
Deceased?
Yeah.
I like it as a title, clever, but I mean, it's one of those things where when
Little late there.
when a copy of what someone else is doing is so shameless, you just think, because you know that like the trades of those are gonna come and they'll have a big long run up and it'll start off with something. Because this is every trade paperback introduction. It was 1993 when Bill Wachowski walked into my office and told me about his idea for a book in which Thor paints a bucket. And initially I thought it was a terrible idea, and then there'll be italics. What? Thor paint a bucket, I said. But eventually he sat me down and sold me on the idea. We took some initial sketches over to Peter Piper on the 3rd floor, and he just went crazy. And then on the next it'll be like there'll be like some early concept art for, and it's all like that, right? But I've never read one that just went. It was 2007 when we saw that Marvel was doing zombies, and it sold well. And we wanted books that would sell well for the same reason. The end.
Right.
Because they're always like that, right? So-and-so approached me, and he said, like, we get it. This comic was commissioned in exactly the same way they all are. Good. Moving on.
Right. I have heard the I have seen the previews for it and like the solicitations, and to be fair, it's a technovirus.
Oh, of course.
Right.
Does that mean it likes club music?
Have you heard this about The Rock has been trying to get meetings with Marvel to get in? It's like, please, for the love of God, let me in the Marvel universe. Like,
Can you be in the Marvel universe and the DC universe, though? That's what I want to know.
I mean,
Is there anybody who's played something in the actual DC universe since Man of Steel who's also been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I'm trying to think. Oh, there is. There is. Lawrence Fishburne was Perry White,
oh, yep.
and he's in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Mm-hmm. There you go. You got your in.
You can do it. Well, welcome aboard. Because I know his movie's not out yet, but he's gonna be Black Adam, isn't he?
That's what everyone keeps talking about. They've never been confirmed though.
The talking caterpillar is in Shazam in a cameo. What's that character called? Do you know what I mean?
A talking caterpillar.
Let me find his name. He's
All I think is like
he's one of those. He's one of those villains. Mr. Mind.
oh,
One of those villains you don't expect to ever get a movie adaptation.
fine. Is
Google it now,
what's his
Mr.
name?
Mind and the Monster Society of Evil, and you'll see who I mean.
I know exactly who. Yeah.
He's
I know
a
who he is.
talking caterpillar with like a radio on his chest that translates his very important caterpillar thoughts. Wouldn't it be great if you did that and it was just like cabbage? That's all it would say.
Yeah. Oh, who did that? It was They did a reboot of it for Captain Marvel, or not Captain Marvel, or I should say Shazam, but at the time it was Captain Marvel. Of the Monster Society.
Well, I remember my first
was-
introduction to him was he played quite a role in. Do you remember 52?
Yes.
He was in that. Do you remember?
Yeah. I
He
mean,
was like a
all-
lava. He was like a baby,
Yeah.
Mr. Mind.
Like all those like really weird Shazam characters popped up in them because like so that whole run up was so ridiculous, right?
For people who
I
don't
know-
remember 52, this was about what, 2005, 2006. DC did this event where all the books jumped forward a year, and you didn't know what had happened in the previous year, in the missing year. To find out what happened in the missing year, you had to buy this this running book called 52 that was it like a weekly series?
It was weekly. You had to buy one every
A
week.
weekly series of 52 issues that explained what that missing year was. So it was kind of like in real time. That was the crossover event that made me just go, fuck it, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not doing them.
Yeah.
It was shit.
Because the whole thing was
But that was pretty much
after
a Shazam event.
Right. It was after Infinite Crisis, right? And this was essentially a year. This is supposed to be a year without Batman, Wonder Woman, or Superman. They all leave for their own various reasons, right?
They've just had enough of this shit.
No, that's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, no, fuck it, we're done. But the problem is, okay, so what this does is it kicks off this. It's hard to explain. Okay, so we have Infinite Crisis, all right, and after that we get 52, right? And after that we get another weekly series after 52 is over called Trinity. Trinity was terrible. Okay,
What's a real shame is
then it keeps going. All right,
yeah.
Then we get Countdown. All right, it goes into this thing called Countdown. No one knows what the fuck Countdown is. And then when this all transpires, it's like a 3-year process that leads us to the mind fuck called Final Crisis, right?
Yeah, which is awful, by the way. Right. Of all the Crisis books you have ever heard of in the DC run, Final Crisis is the worst one.
Yeah, so we basically get like from 2005 to 2010, DC has not stopped with event books. And the problem is they're not separate events. They're an ongoing event broken up into these different titles, but you need to fucking read them all.
And then, by the way, after years,
I've done it. It's horrible.
And then after years, by the way, years of not being able to just sit down and read your characters, they reboot them all into the new 52 in a reboot that is like, is it real? Now the jury's in. There was a lot of debate at the time, but is it really fair to say the new 52 is pretty much universally regarded as a disappointment critically?
There was bright spots in it, but all in all, it was kind of.
I mean, they did stuff like they killed the first time in decades that a run on Batman has been interesting. I mean, when 1 Year Later came out, a lot of 1 Year Later books were actually okay, because the big problem with comics is they're always, and the big thing with all these events, what they're always trying to do is get you to a position where new readers feel like you got a good jumping in point to come in. And those 1 Year Later books, for the first few issues at least, they weren't bad, because with this conceit of all these characters are picking up a year later, that's actually quite a fresh entry point. But
you want to know what the shittiest thing about 52 is, all right? Because actually 52 of all these things is probably the best part, right?
Sure, but
when we go from Infinite Crisis on into Final Crisis, 52 is actually not bad.
No, but the problem with 52 was the effect that it had on the individual books was the first 1, 2, 3 weeks of releases were all good because people knew so little about what was going on, they couldn't refer to stuff. But the longer 52 went, all these 1 Year Later books started referring back to it more and more and more, to the point where if you weren't reading 52, you could no longer follow any of the books.
Right. But the one thing that it does the worst thing it does, 52 does, is we just got done with Infinite Crisis. The whole point of Infinite Crisis at the end is we've eliminated the multiverse, right? We've eliminated it. It's gone. One universe. DC has one universe. Okay. In week 37, I can say this from fucking memory. In week 37, in the letters to the editor section at the back, Dan DiDio writes his whole little spiel about, hey, thanks everyone for listening in, blah, 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 blah. If you take like the first letter of all of his, of every sentence or something like that, it writes out the secret of 52 is that the multiverse still exists. They couldn't even give it a fucking year before they're like, no, we're bringing the multiverse back. It completely eliminates the reason with Infinite Crisis.
And we've talked about it so much, and literally everybody knows now. And it's one of those things where comics are completely stuck. But this is all, we've talked about this so many times before, this is all an attempt to fight the two big problems comics have, which is, A, you can only get comics in specialist stores, so only the most invested of fans go to get them, and B, they won't just publish a book for Spider-Man called Spider-Man and a book for Batman called Batman, and so they need these events to keep people remotely interested because it's too hard to follow and it's not worth it otherwise. So the events keep having to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they keep needing to have these resets, and they keep losing people. It really, like, to me, the way to save comics seems to be really simple, but nobody wants to do it because they know it'll mean losing a lot of people on the way. And it really is to kind of get rid of comics as they are now and start from scratch. Like it really does seem to me the simplest thing to do would be to start publishing one magazine called Batman and make it more magazine format, a little higher quality, you know, once per month, and get it in, you know, like news agents, you know.
Right.
And it to me that solution is really obvious. Get it in stores, not just comic shops, all stores. Like DC and Marvel, they're some of the biggest magazine publishers in the world, right? But they're astonishingly inept at actually publishing magazines. Because they don't think of them as magazines, they think of them as this special magazine called comics. And it screws up everything, really, when you think about it. I don't know, it really irks me. And then when you try and tell people about this and be like, you realize they're completely screwing this up, you know, it's so simple. No, I want to have my perfectly formatted, exactly the same size, really shitty paper comics that fall apart, and because they're collectibles. All right. Bye-bye, industry.
Right. Yeah. It's... Yeah, it's...
I often wonder if they would do better just... I mean, anything couldn't be worse, right? But rather than just publishing them, you know, four issues per story, an issue a month, just start publishing them straight to trades, you know?
Well, that is something that's going to be happening soon. There's a format that's been kind of popping up called OGNs, original graphic novels.
Well, they tried that back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Badly.
I guess. I mean, for comic book readers, this is kind of a big name, but a lot of people have no idea what I'm going to be talking about. But a series called Astro City is switching over to this format.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
that's the right book for that, though.
Yes, absolutely. Kurt Busiek is no longer doing the individual issues anymore. They're just going to be doing trades, graphic novels. And so the story, or the, I shouldn't say story because it's an anthology series. Astro City will now be just published in OGN format, like quarterly, I want to say.
Interesting.
What?
Good. No, I'm way more into that.
Yeah, me too. I'm kind of on board with it.
Because like I recently got into Captain Marvel, as you know, and now I'm completely out of the loop again because I caught up with all the trades. But the trades are like a year behind, you know?
Yeah. Sorry, Asperger Bear, who said, like any other character, have only had one word ever said. Groot, cabbage, cabbage, cabbage. Going back to...
I mean, technically Groot has 3 words.
Yeah.
Do you like that explanation that they sometimes... Because anything in comics always has multiple explanations, but those people who would say Groot's actually saying highly complex sentences, it's just that it just sounds like I am Groot.
Right. I think it's more funny than... I don't need an explanation. I
agree. I like it. I do love that picture going around, though. Have you seen where Groot's talking to Jean Grey? and there's this thought bubble above him that just says some. It's this really eloquent sentence. It says things like, "Jean Grey, you're one of the most thoughtful and kind people in the universe. Every time I see you, you just touch my heart." It's this long, long thought bubble, and then underneath there's a speech bubble that just says, "I am Groot." I kind of liked that. That was a nice little scene.
Do you remember that? It reminds me a lot of let's just go through this a little bit and then we'll start wrapping up. But when Borderlands, was it Borderlands 2 or maybe, they had this promotional video calling one of the crazies. I can't remember what they're called in the game, but the crazy bastards, like they're on the cover of the first Borderlands.
I know the characters you mean. I don't remember the movie you're talking about.
But it has this long running narrative of like I don't know when I became crazy. I don't know when it happened. It's this really thoughtful narrative, but then it like what he said, I was like, I want to spank meat, you know. And then at the end, it shows one of the vault dwellers standing there, and someone's gonna come around behind her, and the crazy's like, look, you've seen her before. She's beautiful. You know she's beautiful. She makes you happy. You know, every time you see her, you get closer to just getting a semblance of your sanity back. And if you do nothing right now, she will die. You know, the crazy guy's like, pretty lady, kill! And he throws an axe and kills the dude behind her. And the guy's like, whatever, close enough. I always thought that was funny.
No, I agree.
But yeah, we should start wrapping up here.
All right.
Thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed our long-winded talk about not only Avengers Endgame, but comic books in general and whatnot. And if you are not really comic book fans, you should be comic book fans, more so than just the movies. There's a plethora of great stories out there that you guys should dive into. And, you know, you use the MCU as a jumping off point. Dive deeper, right? There's some cool stuff. And, but yeah, other than that, I've been one of your hosts, Jonathan Cadott. With me, as always, been Owen Adams. Owen, where can they normally find you?
You can go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Owen Adams. It's good.
Awesome. And you can stick right here on this channel if you want to see anything else from me, or you can follow me on Twitter, which is @JohnCPerson. And until next time, have a good one.
Bye-bye.